Chapter 1876. Legend has it that before the creation of the heavens and earth were just primal chaos. Then, an almighty expert created the heavens and earth, creating the endless starry sky and countless planets. The primal chaos was boundless, and the endless starry sky was the closest to the primal chaos. Therefore, the starry sky was also almost boundless. Ordinary low-grade planets, then to the origin star. The origin stars formed many galaxies. The difference between a planet and a galaxy was like the difference between a city and a country in the mortal world. A planet was a city, and countless planets formed a country, which was a galaxy. The water cloud planet was a remote origin star in the solar system. Legend has it that there were even high-grade origin stars like the 3 origin stars and 4 origin stars in the solar system. These were the fragments of memories that Murong-Yu extracted from the Reverend Shirgu's remains after refining them. However, too much time had passed, and many of the memories were already lost. However, Murong-Yu still knew where the Reverend Shirgu came from. The Reverend Shirgu came from the 3 origin star, which was called the Sky Marshal planet, also known as the Sky Marshal World's 3 origin star. In the Sky Marshal World, the Rebirth Realm experts, there were as many as ants, and even the Chaotic Void Realm experts were like ants. The Sky Marshal World had experts stronger than the Chaotic Void Realm. The Bright World Realm. The difference between the Bright World Realm and the Chaotic Void Realm was not just in terms of strength. What was even more terrifying was that the Bright World Realm experts could already control the time law. The time law was even more terrifying than the space law. The reason why no one noticed when Murong-Yu used the time law on the water cloud planet was because the people here were too ignorant and could not resist the time law. So what if they knew? They did not even know that the realm above the Chaotic Void Realm was the Bright World Realm. What was the realm above the Bright World Realm? Murong-Yu did not know. Perhaps it was because the Reverend Shirgu had died too long ago and his memories were scattered. Or perhaps the Reverend Shirgu was just a small fry in the Sky Marshal world and could not come into contact with such things, so he did not know. However, no matter what, Murong-Yu's next stop was already set. The Sky Marshal world. The endless starry sky was filled with many planets. Some small planets, like the Saint's world, were extremely barren, where even Rebirth Realm experts could not appear. There were also origin stars like the Water Cloud star. In the endless outer space, planets like the Saint's world and planets like the Water Cloud planet were extremely common. There were far more planets with life. However, most of them were desolate stars and dead stars that were not suitable for living. The location of the Water Cloud planet was just too remote. There were only planets like the Saint's world nearby. There weren't many Unyuan planets. As for the Tianwu world, it was extremely far away from the Water Cloud star. Given the flying speed of a Chaotic Void Realm expert, it would probably take an epoch to fly from the Water Cloud star. The Heaven Marshal world was the closest Trinity star to the Water Cloud star. Of course, Murong-Yu would not directly use his physical body to travel through the endless starry sky. Without a nebula map, he would soon get lost in the endless starry sky. He had already found an ancient transportation formation that led to the Heaven Marshal world. Back then, Reverend Shirgu had used this teleportation array to teleport to Water Cloud star. The ancient transportation formation could still be used, but the amount of resources required to activate it was too terrifying. Only when Murong-Yu placed all the origin crystals he had obtained from robbing the Lin family did the ancient transportation formation react. However, these origin crystals were only enough to transport one person. If there was one more person, the transportation formation would probably stop working. To be honest, although these origin crystals were all taken from the Lin family, Murong-Yu still felt some heartache. However, he still clenched his teeth and activated the ancient transportation formation. Bang! A dazzling light shot up into the sky and into the 9 heavens. At the same time, a void passage appeared in front of Murong-Yu. An even more powerful and vast aura came from a void passage. It was so powerful that it made one feel suffocated. It was so powerful that it made one's blood boil. This aura must have come from the heaven martial world. Without the slightest hesitation, Murong charged into the void passage. If he delayed any longer, once the origin crystals were used up, he would not be able to teleport to the heaven martial world. Should he rob again? Who knew if Water Cloud Star still had so many origin crystals? If Murong were to rob them, he would definitely incur the wrath of the people of Aquastar Sky. So what if Murong left? The Rebirth Realm experts of Water Cloud Star would definitely not let the Holy World go. Even if Murong left, he would not be at ease. Like now, the people of Water Cloud Star would definitely not dare to touch the Holy World. Even if someone dared to destroy the Holy World, the powers that ruled Water Cloud Star would definitely forbid it. This was because they did not dare to provoke Murong. Once Murong was angered, they would all be wiped out by Murong. After Murong entered the spatial passage, it quickly disappeared. Then, the light from the ancient transportation formation became weaker and weaker until it finally disappeared. Only fine powder was left behind on the ground, the remains of the origin crystals. A tearing sensation swept through Murong body, crazily tearing at Murong body. Murong had no choice but to circulate his energy to resist the tearing force from the transportation formation. It seemed like only a moment had passed, or perhaps hundreds of millions of years had passed. Finally, after a burst of strong light, Murong's feet landed on solid ground. However, before he could react, a black shadow quickly tore through space and shot over from afar. Murong was shocked and hurriedly reached out to grab the black shadow. Softness entered his hand, and a delicate fragrance immediately assailed his nostrils. Why did this feel a little off? It was as if he was grabbing something. Murong was somewhat hesitant and immediately looked over. What he saw almost scared him to death. He was actually grabbing a woman, a breathtakingly beautiful woman. His hand just happened to grab the woman's chest. No wonder it was so soft. It felt pretty good. This thought instantly flashed through Murong's mind. However, his hand had already let go. That woman let out a moan, and her body quickly fell down. Murong then saw clearly that the woman's mouth was bleeding, and her white dress was dyed red with blood. So beautiful! When Murong saw the woman's appearance, even he couldn't help but exclaim. The woman's appearance was definitely devastatingly beautiful, similar to Zhao Jiqing. However, she looked even more elegant than Zhao Jiqing, even better than Zhao Jiqing. Of course, Zhao Jiqing's weakness now was that she wasn't strong enough and was still in the realm of a sector lord. However, if Zhao Jiqing could reach the rebirth realm, her aura would definitely not be any weaker than the eyeball. Save me. The woman's extremely weak voice sounded in Murong's ears. Murong then subconsciously hugged the woman in his arms. That demonic woman is over there. Kill her quickly. Just as Murong hugged the so-called demonic woman in his arms, a thunderous voice sounded in Murong's ears. In the next moment, Murong's hair stood on end. An extremely strong aura of death instantly rose from his heart and enveloped his entire body. He let out a strange cry and then ran. However, even though he was fast, the opponent's attack was faster. Even though Murong was running, the aura of death was still getting stronger. Don't tell me I offended those Bright World Realm experts the moment I came here. Murong was extremely furious. However, he didn't stop, as he wasn't someone who would sit and wait for death. However, with his speed, no matter how he struggled, he wouldn't be able to change the final outcome. However, at this moment, an indescribable but extremely vast power surged into his body. Suddenly, Murong's speed skyrocketed, and he disappeared on the spot in an instant. Right after Murong disappeared, an incomparably frightening power came crashing down. After a loud bang, the area where Murong was originally at was directly annihilated. What's going on? Murong kept shuttling through the void, and his speed was more than 10,000 times faster than before. However, this wasn't what shocked him, because he knew that the power that surged into his body was the power of the woman in his hands. While shuttling through the void, Murong felt that the pressure from space was infinitely reduced, and it seemed to be related to time. So, the power of time can be used in this way. Murong was greatly enlightened. Space had resistance, and so did time. It was just that ordinary people couldn't feel it. After all, although time couldn't be seen, it did exist, and there would be resistance. If time is integrated into my body, how much will my speed increase without the resistance of time? Murong thought to himself, and he already had some understanding. Swoosh! In the next instant, Murong's speed skyrocketed again. This shocked the woman in his arms. Murong's current speed could be said to be entirely because of her. However, Murong could still increase his strength on top of her foundation. This kid was too terrifying. Looking at his cultivation realm, he was only in the rebirth state. Could he comprehend the power of time at the rebirth state? Was it that magical? However, the so-called skyrocketing speed was relative to Murong's previous speed. The experts chasing after the woman were even faster, and they had already caught up. Hey, who are you? Murong glanced at the beauty in his arms, and he even had the impulse to throw her away. Feeling Murong's tone, the beautiful woman couldn't help but feel depressed, and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This kid in the rebirth state actually despised her. How could this not cause her to be indignant? She didn't even mind being hugged by him, but he actually despised her. Chapter 1877. Yulan was extremely depressed and wanted to slap Murong to death. However, she still needed Murong's help to escape, so she endured it. However, she was already thinking of how to settle the score with Murong in the future. Although the 9 words mantra had an ancient word that allowed Murong to read minds. However, it would only work on cultivators of the same or lower realm. Although Yulan was heavily injured, her strength was much higher than Murong's. Murong was unable to read her mind. Furthermore, he did not have the time to read her mind, because the terrifying experts behind him were catching up to him step by step. Demon girl, do you have a way to escape? After half a day, seeing that the distance between them was getting closer and closer, Murong asked anxiously. Even now, he did not know if what he did was right or wrong. Was this demon girl a good person or a good person? However, Murong did not have the time to think about this. He had already carried the demon girl for a long distance. It could be said that he and the demon girl were already on the same boat. Even if he abandoned the demon girl now, the experts behind him would not let him go. As for entering Hichu Luoshu, he could enter Hichu Luoshu, but in the sky martial world, there was no teleportation point. He could not teleport back to Watercloud Star, right? Furthermore, he did not know the identity of this demon girl. He would not bring her into Hichu Luoshu. What if this demon girl killed him and stole his treasure? With Murong's current strength, he was not her opponent. There's no other way. The demon girl rolled her eyes at Murong. If she had a way, she would have already escaped. How could she be in such a sorry state now? Hearing this, Murong was about to vomit blood. Demon girl, are you doing this on purpose? Deliberately dragging me down? You finally realized? You're not that stupid? Murong felt the blood and chi in his body surging. He almost couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He was not related to this demoness, nor did he have any enmity with her. Yet, she was playing such a prank on him. Was she trying to kill him? Therefore, Murong looked at the demoness with grief and indignation. Demoness, if you want to kill me, you could just kill me directly. Do you need to be so cruel? Yulan rolled her eyes at Murong and laughed. Little guy, I've never been so close to a man before. Even my hands have never been touched before. Now that you've hugged me and touched me, it's worth it even if you die. Murong almost vomited blood. This was not what he wanted. If he had a choice, he would definitely not get close to this demoness. Witch, hurry up and think of a way. If you can't think of a way, I can only abandon you. Murong glared viciously at the witch. Little guy, let go of that demoness. Otherwise, I'll kill you too. A villainous man shouted from behind. As for Murong, who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, he really wanted to slap him to death. If it wasn't for this guy, the demoness would have been captured by them. Therefore, they hated Murong Yu to the core. Even though Murong Yu was just an ant-like existence, if they had the chance, they would definitely slap Murong Yu to death. Bullsh asterisk T. If I let go of the demoness, will you let me go? Murong Yu couldn't help but retort. The villainous man was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. He roared and his speed instantly increased. In an instant, he closed the distance between him and Murong Yu. Murong Yu jumped in fright and hurriedly burst forth with his strongest power to fly forward. With the other party's strength, he could probably crush him to death with a finger. Demoness, I can't hold on much longer. Murong Yu glared at the demoness in his arms. He had the urge to spank her. The demoness was now curled up in Murong Yu's arms. When Murong Yu looked at her, she even squirmed a little, as if looking for a more comfortable position. How was she running away? She was simply enjoying it. On the other hand, Murong Yu was running away bitterly, of course. With Murong Yu's almost endless power, there would be a day when he couldn't hold on. But he didn't want to be chased by those powerhouses all day. Those were all Bright World Realm powerhouses. If there was no demoness, how could he fight against them? Don't worry, I'm thinking of a way. The demoness glared at Murong Yu. But in Murong Yu's eyes, she didn't look like she was looking for a way. On the other hand, Murong Yu was getting more and more anxious. This was because he felt that the demoness power was getting weaker and weaker. He was afraid that the demoness injuries were too serious. If this situation continued, it wouldn't take long for those powerhouses to catch up. Swish! While Murong Yu was anxious, the demoness finally made her move. She stretched out her slender hand and drew a line in the void in front of Murong Yu. A void crack appeared in front of Murong Yu. An incomparably terrifying, tearing aura surged towards them. Go in. Murong Yu didn't have time to hesitate. The demoness power had already pushed him into the spatial crack. After Murong Yu and the demoness entered the void crack, it disappeared. The people who had been chasing after him all stopped one by one and cursed loudly. They tore through the void and teleported away. This ability wasn't something that every Bright World Realm powerhouse, or even someone of a higher realm, possessed. The Bright World Realm powerhouses chasing after the demoness couldn't do it. The demoness was probably the only person in the Sky Martial world who had such a heaven-defying method. The terrifying tearing sensation acted on Murong Yu's body, as if it wanted to tear Murong Yu apart. Even with the protection of the demonic woman's power, Murong Yu was still bathed in blood from the impact of the attack. His already weak body was almost torn apart. Fortunately, the void crack wasn't too long. In the blink of an eye, Murong Yu fell from the void with the demoness in his arms. Just as they fell from the void, before Murong Yu could even touch the ground, the demoness in his arms tilted her head and fainted. Murong Yu was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. If the void crack was just a little longer, they would have lost the protection of the demoness power. The two of them would have been torn apart by the power of the void crack. This caused Murong Yu to feel rather displeased. Without absolute strength, he couldn't control his own fate. This kind of situation where his fate was in the hands of others made him extremely unhappy. And this strengthened Murong Yu's determination to quickly increase his strength. Looking at the unconscious demoness in his arms, Murong Yu forcefully resisted the tempting thought of throwing her away. He carried her and soared into the sky. Because he didn't know how long the void crack was, he didn't dare to be sure that the people behind them wouldn't catch up. Without the demoness, Murong Yu couldn't even block a finger of the other party. Although this result made Murong Yu unhappy, it was the truth. After flying at full speed for 3 days and 3 nights, Murong Yu casually found a cave in a mountain range and walked in. During this process, the injuries that he had suffered before had been healed. On the way, he also tried to use his life force to heal the demoness. However, the demoness was simply too powerful, and the power of life had little effect on her. She was at least a high-level Bright World Realm powerhouse. In the end, Murong Yu had no choice but to choose this cave and wait for the demoness' automatic healing. However, perhaps the demoness' injuries were too serious. The effect of the automatic healing was so poor that it made one's hair stand on end. Murong guessed that it would take at least a month for the demoness to wake up. In fact, Murong still overestimated the demoness ability or underestimated the demoness injuries. 2 months, a full 2 months before the demoness woke up. And in these 2 months, Murong had been sitting cross-legged in the cave to cultivate. Although the power he absorbed from his cultivation couldn't improve his strength, but no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Moreover, he couldn't leave now. Little guy, did you touch and kiss me when I was unconscious? After the demoness woke up, she looked at Murong and said faintly. Murong was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. This demoness was indeed beautiful. She was even more beautiful than Zhao Jiqing. But Murong wasn't a sex maniac. Would he do such a perverted thing? So Murong glared at the demoness, got up, and turned to leave. Demoness, since you're awake, I'll leave. This demoness was powerful, and her identity was even more mysterious. Most importantly, she was being chased by several bright world realm powerhouses. Murong's strength was too weak now. He didn't want to be involved in a fight between powerhouses of this level, because if he wasn't careful, he would die. I'm seriously injured now. Even an ordinary person can poke me to death with a finger. Do you have a heart to leave me here to be eaten by beasts? Moreover, I'm so beautiful. It's inevitable that those beasts won't have any thoughts. Murong staggered and finally couldn't help but spit out. What kind of weird idea did this demoness have? Didn't she know that different races had different aesthetic standards? Although the demoness was beautiful, in the eyes of those beasts, she was just something. Only this demoness could think of making the beasts have thoughts about her. However, this demoness didn't have any strength. It was indeed easy for the beasts to kill her. What do you want? Murong stopped and turned to look at the demoness. Send me back to my sect. Murong quickly shook his head. What kind of joke was this? Not to mention that he didn't know where the demoness sect was. Even if he knew, he wouldn't be willing to send her there. Who knew if he would encounter some enemies of the demoness along the way? A bright world realm powerhouse. I can help you raise your strength to the chaos realm. If you send me back to my sect, I can guarantee that I can raise your strength to the bright world realm, as long as you're not too stupid. The demoness stared at Murong with her big eyes and pretended to look pitiful. However, the condition she offered made Murong very tempted. Chapter 1878. However, although Murong was quite tempted, he wasn't a hothead. He agreed immediately. He still didn't know anything about the demonic woman's identity. Also, what was the demonic woman's sect? Where was it? Did it really have the ability to increase Murong's strength? He had to understand all these. Thus, Murong tossed all these questions to the demonic woman. Then, he looked at her. The demoness stretched her waist, revealing her graceful figure. However, Murong didn't look at her from beginning to end. This made the demonic woman angry. She secretly cursed Murong in her heart for not being a man. I'm from the lunar sect, and the lunar sect is the most powerful sect in this area. Our lunar sect even has creation realm cultivators, and there's more than one. At this point, a proud expression appeared on the demonic woman's face. It was as if the lunar sect made her very proud. However, Murong sneered. He had never heard of the lunar sect. In fact, he couldn't even be sure if the lunar sect existed in this world. After all, this was only the demonic woman's side of the story. However, at this moment, the sun sovereign suddenly appeared in Murong's mind. What was the relationship between the sun and the moon? And this was the solar system. Was the sun sovereign from the solar system? What kind of existence was he in the solar system? What kind of existence is the sun sovereign? Murong looked at the demonic woman and suddenly asked. The sun sovereign is naturally the ruler of a galaxy, the most powerful person, the demonic woman blurted out. However, she quickly reacted. Then, she looked at Murong with an extremely shocked expression. How do you know about the sun sovereign? Murong laughed and didn't answer. But in his heart, he was stunned. The ruler of a galaxy. In other words, the Sun Sovereign was very likely the ruler of the solar system. Or rather, the previous ruler, the most powerful person in the solar system. However, why did he eventually die in the Holy Realm? In other words, there were even more powerful existences above the Sun Sovereign. It was no wonder that his avatar's strength had skyrocketed after cultivating the Sun Sutra. This level of cultivation technique was probably the most powerful in the solar system. What realm did the strongest person in the solar system reach? At the very least, they were existences at the peak of the creation realm, and they might even be existences that surpassed the creation realm. In other words, Murong-Yu's clones were at least in the blessed realm. As for whether the strength of the creation realm was considered a powerhouse in the entire endless starry sky, were there any higher realms above them? Murong-Yu didn't know. Speak. How do you know about the monarch? The demonic woman stared at Murong-Yu and asked again. With Murong-Yu's strength and his knowledge of the martial heaven world, it was impossible for him to know anything about the sovereign realm and the sovereign of the solar system. Murong-Yu laughed and immediately changed the topic. Who knew what was the relationship between the demonic woman and the Sun Sovereign? He could never reveal his relationship with the Sun Monarch. Even if it was just the inheritance of the Sun Monarch, it would bring him a fatal disaster. However, Murong-Yu's reaction made her even more curious. However, Murong-Yu simply avoided the topic and didn't answer the question directly. Demonic woman, it's not impossible to send you back to your sect, but I want to increase my strength now. Murong-Yu looked at the demonic woman and said, he was only in the half-step chaos realm now, and with this realm, he could do whatever he wanted on the water cloud planet. However, in the martial heaven world, he was only a cultivator at the lowest level. To put it bluntly, he was just an ant. Although a chaotic void realm expert was only a relatively stronger ant, his strength was still much stronger than before. The demonic woman flipped her palm, and a pill appeared in her hand. I see that you are stuck in the half-step chaos realm. It shouldn't be a problem of insufficient comprehension, but insufficient accumulation of power. This pill contains an enormous amount of power. After you swallow it, it should be able to help you advance to the chaos realm. Murong-Yu looked over and discovered that the medicinal pill indeed contained an intense radiance of power. This radiance of power was only for someone of his current realm. If it was something weaker than his current realm, the power light emitted by it would be very weak or almost non-existent. Otherwise, Murong-Yu's eyes would be filled with things emitting an intense light. However, although the power light emitted by the pill was passable, it was unlikely to increase Murong-Yu's realm. However, if it could increase it a little, it would be a little. Thus, Murong-Yu took the pill and swallowed it in one gulp. Aren't you afraid that this is a poisonous pill or a pill that can control your soul? The demonic woman looked at Murong-Yu with a smile. Murong-Yu merely smiled. After all, it wasn't like he'd actually eaten the pill. Swallowing it was just a pretense. In fact, he had already thrown the pill into the chaos furnace. As long as it entered the chaos furnace, it didn't matter what kind of pill it was. It would all be refined into the most primitive power. Be careful, don't explode. I'll give you half a year's time to refine this pill. The demonic woman instructed, but Murong-Yu didn't pay attention to it. He just pretended to sit cross-legged on the ground. It looked like he was refining the medicinal power of the pill. In fact, although this pill was good, it was quickly refined by the chaos furnace. However, in order not to let the demonic woman see through it, Murong-Yu still controlled the power to slowly enter his body. It wasn't until 3 days later that Murong-Yu slowly opened his eyes. His power had increased by another level, but he still didn't break through. The demonic woman looked at Murong-Yu with a shocked gaze. Although this pill wasn't very advanced for her, it was quite advanced for Murong-Yu. Previously, the demonic woman gave Murong-Yu half a year's time, and half a year's time was considered extremely fast. Murong-Yu, on the other hand, had only used 3 days. Wasn't this too monstrous? In fact, Murong-Yu was also depressed. Originally, he could completely devour the power of this pill in less than 2 hours. Under his control, it took Murong-Yu 3 days to finish devouring the fruit, and this was already the limit. Because there wasn't much power left after refining this pill, Muronyu really couldn't use a longer time to refine. Demonic woman, this pill doesn't seem to work. Are there any more advanced pills? In fact, Muronyu wanted to ask if there were any more advanced Yuan weapons, but that was too shocking, so he didn't expose it. Who knew if the demonic woman would kill him to study? The demonic woman rolled her eyes. No. Her pills were generally used for healing, recovering Yuan Qi, and enhancing comprehension. It was just that when she was being chased, she had already used up all her pills for healing and recovering Yuan Qi. A disappointed expression appeared on Murongyu's face. However, before he could say anything, the demonic woman suddenly said with a murderous look, "Don't worry, I will definitely raise your strength to the chaotic realm. Now, I will bring you to a good place." As she spoke, the demonic woman stood up and was about to walk out. Seeing the demonic woman's expression, Muronyu felt a moment of silence in his heart. The so-called good place this demonic woman was talking about was most likely the place of her enemies. But why do I feel like something is wrong? That's right, this fellow hasn't recovered her strength yet. Doesn't that mean I have to do manual labor again? This thought instantly appeared in Murongyu's mind. Sure enough, after taking a few steps, the demonic woman looked at Murongyu with a pitiful look. "I can't walk anymore. Carry me." Murongyu staggered, then took a step and was already outside the cave. "Up to you whether you want to go or not." The demonic woman walked out with a sad face and looked at Murongyu. "I am really heavily injured. Now, an ordinary person can kill me with a finger. Could it be that you have the heart to see me walk?" As she spoke, the demonic woman staggered and threw herself at Murongyu. Murongyu glared at her, then used his strength to support the demonic woman. "Tell me, where is the place you want to bring me to?" Murongyu could also see that the demonic woman's body did not have much strength left. Of course, this could also be an act by the demonic woman. With this demonic woman's bright world realm strength, it was too easy for Murongyu to not see through her. The demonic woman identified the direction. Then Murongyu used his strength to wrap around the demonic woman. The two of them soared into the sky and shot in that direction. Although rebirth realm experts, even half-step chaotic realm experts, could fly in the Timu world, their flying speed was extremely slow. However, Murongyu had been enlightened by the demonic woman, in addition to the enlightenment he had gained over the past few months. His flying speed had increased explosively compared to before. When he passed through the void, he did not encounter any resistance. In fact, the power of space and time was like a giant hand that was pushing him from behind and increasing his speed. Seeing Murongyu's speed, the demonic woman was shocked. This speed was not inferior to that of an ordinary high-level chaotic space realm expert. If Murongyu broke through to the chaotic space realm, then wouldn't his speed be unrivaled in the chaotic space realm? Maybe even the speed of a bright world realm expert? Monster. Freak. These two words instantly appeared in the demonic woman's heart. Such a freak must join the lunar sect. The sun sect often suppresses the lunar sect, making them unable to raise their heads. It's time to change the sovereign of the solar system. This guy might be able to make a comeback for our lunar sect. The demonic woman thought in her heart, already thinking of how to pull Murongyu into the lunar sect. The lunar sect and the sun sect had always been the two strongest factions in the solar system. Moreover, these two factions were sworn enemies. However, the sun sect was always stronger than the lunar sect. Therefore, the position of sovereign of the sun sect had always been held by the sun sect. However, the demonic woman also realized that Murongyu would not join a faction so easily. In fact, if the demonic woman knew how Murongyu was trying to join a faction, would she be incomparably happy? Chapter 1879. Little guy, let's go to the Sky Sea sect now. Although this sect has a bright world realm ancestor overseeing it, it's just a trash force. What if something happens to me? I can slap this Sky Sea sect to death with a single slap, the demoness said with disdain on the way. Murongyu indifferently glanced at the other party. I say, woman, you really want to save face. If you fell to the Sky Sea sect, just admit it. Why find so many excuses? Along the way, Moronyu already knew why the Demoness was being hunted. The Bright World realm ancestor of the Sky Sea sect was among the people who were chasing the Demoness. As for why they were chasing the Demoness was very tight-lipped and didn't reveal anything. The Demoness was originally a peak Bright World realm existence. It was said that she came to the Tianwu world from another planet to train. It was all for the sake of breaking through to the blessed realm in one fell swoop. However, for some reason, he provoked the Sky Sea sect. As an outstanding disciple of the lunar sect, the Demoness didn't put these Bright World realm ancestors in her eyes. However, because she was injured previously, she wasn't a match for them. The Demoness glared at Moronyu. If it wasn't for me, Moronyu couldn't be bothered to listen to the Demoness. At this moment, he had already descended from the sky. The Sky Sea sect was one of the strongest forces in the Tianwu world. They had a Bright World realm ancestor overseeing it. There were many Rebirth realm disciples like Moronyu. In fact, there were even quite a number of Bright World realm experts. Therefore, Moronyu definitely didn't dare to enter the Sky Sea sect so openly. Moreover, Moronyu had the Demoness by his side. He glanced at the Demoness. Demoness, how do we enter? If it was just Moronyu, he wouldn't have to worry about this at all. He could enter after concealing himself. Even if the entire Sky Sea sect was enveloped by formations and restrictions, could it stop Moronyu? However, as one of Moronyu's trump cards, he definitely wouldn't reveal them in front of the Demoness. What if the Demoness killed him and stole his treasures? That's right. How we get in? The witch looked at the Sky Sea sect with a worried expression. She had entered the Sky Sea sect before, but at that time, she had done so openly. At that time, even the patriarch of the Sky Sea sect was respectful to her. If it weren't for the accident that happened later, she might have even been treated as a patriarch in the Sky Sea sect. Moreover, if she was at her peak, she could easily tear apart the formations and restrictions here. As for now, forget it. Thus, the two of them looked at each other. Why don't we just forget about it? The witch suddenly asked with a somewhat guilty conscience. With Morongyu's rebirth state strength, it was impossible for him to enter. It was better to wait until she recovered her strength before coming over to suppress the Heavenly Sea sect. How dare they chase after her? How preposterous! No, Moronyu rejected the Demoness suggestion without any hesitation. It wasn't easy to get here. How could he give up? The Sky Sea sect's treasury must have countless treasures. These treasures could help him increase his strength. Even if it was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, he still had to give it a try. Do you have a way? The Demoness hurriedly asked. However, after asking this question, the Demoness couldn't help but laugh. Moronyu is just a rebirth state cultivator. How could he have a way? Do you have a spatial treasure that can carry people? Can it carry living people? Moronyu asked. Other than Hichu Luoshu, he didn't have such a treasure. Even if he had one, it might not be able to carry the Demoness. After all, the Demoness was a Bright World realm cultivator. Even if she restrained her aura, it would be easy for her to destroy low-level spatial treasures. Yes, the Demoness didn't hesitate to take out a small 3-story pagoda. Go in. Moronyu pointed at the small pagoda in the Demoness' hand and said to her. The Demoness looked at Moronyu in disbelief and said, You want me to go in? Don't tell me you want to. At this point, the Demoness couldn't help but make a shy expression. However, Moronyu couldn't help but shudder at the sight of his expression. Do you want revenge? Moronyu looked at the Demoness impatiently. The Demoness nodded and didn't say anything else. Instead, she obediently entered the small 3-story pagoda. If I don't call you, don't come out. Otherwise, it's none of my business if you get chased down, Moronyu instructed, and then put the small pagoda into a storage space. This spatial treasure couldn't carry a living person. However, it could carry a spatial treasure that could carry a living person. However, if the Demoness came out of the small pagoda, this spatial treasure would instantly shatter. After taking a deep breath, Moronyu took a step forward and disappeared from where he stood. Invisibility. After becoming invisible, Muronyu walked toward the Sky C-sect's protective array without hesitation. However, it was a powerful sect with a bright world realm ancestor guarding it after all. Muronyu didn't rush in directly. Instead, he first stretched out his hand to test it. Without any obstruction, his large hand passed through the formation and entered the heavenly sea gate. His physique was really too abnormal, and he could ignore all restrictions and formations in the world. After taking a step, Muronyu had already entered the Sky Sea sect. After entering, Muronyu appeared to be very careful. This was because he couldn't guarantee that a bright world realm ancestor wouldn't be able to see through his invisibility at a glance. After a long time, Muronyu realized that no one had discovered him, so he began to move. He slowly moved toward the Sky Sea sect's treasury according to the route given by the Demoness. However, his speed was still not fast. This was because he realized that there would occasionally be a very large divine consciousness passing through the Sky Sea sect. These divine consciousnesses appeared very abruptly. If Muronyu wasn't careful, it was very likely that he would be discovered. In the end, Muronyu arrived outside the Sky Sea sect's treasury without any surprise or danger. This was an ordinary cave. The cave was sealed by an iron door, and the iron door was firmly enveloped by layers of arrays and restrictions. Unless someone guided him, these arrays and restrictions would be triggered. An old man sat cross-legged in front of the iron door. This was a very ordinary-looking old man. The skin on his face was full of wrinkles like the skin of a dried grapefruit. However, Muronyu didn't dare to underestimate this old man at all. According to the Demoness information, this old man was actually a high-level bright world realm ancestor. He should be the ancestor guarding the Sky Sea sect's treasury. This old man's divine consciousness enveloped the entire iron door and the area within 10,000 miles of the iron door. Even a mosquito would be discovered by him. Muronyu didn't directly barge in. In that case, even if he was invisible, there was a high chance that he would be discovered. And once he was discovered by this old man, Muronyu wouldn't even have time to enter the Hichu Luoshu before he would be captured. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Just as Muronyu was thinking about how to break through the old man's seal and enter the treasury, a young man quickly shot over from afar. Murongyu's eyes flashed, and then he carefully flew over to the young man. After the young man arrived in front of the treasury, he bowed to the old man from afar and said respectfully, "Ancestor, this disciple has come to the treasury to choose a treasure under the orders of the sect. I hope the ancestor will let me through." Hearing this, the old man finally opened his eyes that had been tightly shut. However, when he saw the young man, his turbid eyes revealed a trace of light, but it was only for a moment. Without saying anything, the old man formed a few seals with his hands and closed his eyes again. The young man was overjoyed. After bowing to the old man again, he walked towards the iron door. At this moment, one by one, they rushed forward. During this process, he had already entered the Hichu Luoshu, and the Hichu Luoshu transformed into an invisible particle that attached itself to the young man's body. The young man's strength wasn't high, only at the low-level chaos realm, so he didn't discover the Hichu Luoshu. However, the old man suddenly opened his eyes and looked over. However, Muronyu was already holding his breath. No matter how the old man's divine sense searched the young man's body, he still couldn't find him. However, it was obvious that the young man also sensed the old man's actions and revealed a displeased expression. This fellow's status in the Sky Sea sect was definitely not low, and he was definitely a second-generation descendant. Otherwise, why would he dare to show displeasure to a high-level bright world realm ancestor? Wasn't he afraid of being killed by the old man? The iron door quickly opened, and the young man entered the treasury. The aura of all kinds of treasures assaulted his senses, but Muronyu resisted the urge to attack. He remained hidden on the young man's body, not daring to move. This was because he discovered that the old man's divine sense was still enveloping the young man. Presumably, the old man was already suspicious. If Muronyu carelessly gave himself away, he would undoubtedly die. The young man's expression was somewhat unsightly. The old man's divine sense was still enveloping him, making him mistakenly think that the old man was spying on him. Strictly speaking, everything in this treasury belonged to his family. So what if he took a few more? This old man was only his family's slave, yet he dared to be so impudent? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The young man immediately exploded. "Old man, what's the meaning of this? Why are you spying on me? Even if I take all the treasures here, what does it have to do with you?" Pooh, Moron, you couldn't help but spit out. This young man was really too awesome. However, could this fellow be the son of the Sky Sea Sex Master? Otherwise, why would he dare to be so impudent? Schwa! Just as the young man was cursing, the temperature in the treasury instantly plummeted. The sudden drop in temperature caused all the hair on the young man's body to stand on end. However, it quickly returned to its original state, and the old man's divine sense also retreated. Presumably, the old man was also angry just now. This young man is really a good person. Moron, you couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 1880. The young man's face immediately turned pale and bloodless from the impact. Fortunately, the old man's divine sense retreated quickly. Otherwise, the young man would have been shocked to death. "Old fart, don't let me surpass you in strength. Otherwise, I'll kill you first," the young man cursed after a while with a murderous look on his face. Moron, you could feel that if the young man's strength really surpassed the old man's, he might be able to kill the old man immediately. As he spoke, the young man grabbed at the air with his large hand. In the next moment, something that looked like a sack appeared in his hand. Before Moron, you could react, the pouch had already soared into the air and expanded with the wind. In the blink of an eye, the sack had expanded to the size of a house. "Collect them all," the young man said in a low voice. Immediately, a terrifying, devouring power erupted from the pouch. Everything that was enveloped by the devouring power was quickly devoured. In the blink of an eye, all the treasures near the entrance of the Tianhai Sect's treasury were devoured. Not even a single pill was left behind. It was obvious that this was only the beginning. The young man's face was filled with excitement as he controlled the sack and kept going deeper and deeper. Wherever he went, not even a blade of grass grew. What a wastrel! Moron Yu, who was in the Hichu Luo Shu, could not help but click his tongue when he saw this scene. If his old man knew that he had emptied his treasury just like that, would he be angered to death? If Moron Xian had done this, Moron Yu might have vomited blood in anger. The treasury of the Tianhai sect was very large, and there were many treasures stored in different categories. However, no matter how many treasures there were, they could not withstand the young man's devouring power. In less than half a day, the young man arrived at the back of the treasury. During this process, Moron Yu did not intend to make a move. This was because once he made a move, the people of the Tianhai sect would be suspicious. However, if these treasures were taken out by the young man, and Moron Yu robbed him, wouldn't the Tianhai sect vomit blood even more? In the deepest part of the treasury was something that looked like an altar. There was a high platform on the altar, and a yuan artifact that emitted a terrifying aura was placed on top of it. This origin tool must have been sealed by layers of formations and restrictions. Even so, the aura it emitted was extremely terrifying, making it difficult for Moron Yu to breathe. Although the young man's cultivation level was higher than Moron Yu's, but in terms of resisting the aura, he was clearly far inferior to Moron Yu. At this moment, his entire body trembled as he looked at the origin item. However, the young man's eyes shone with a strange light. Is this our Heavenly Sea Sect's cornerstone origin artifact? A creation-level origin artifact. A blessed realm origin artifact. Hearing this, Moron Yu's eyes lit up in Hichu Luo Shu. If he could refine this creator-level origin artifact, it was possible for him to directly rush to the peak of the Chaos Realm, or even break through to the Bright World Realm in one go. The Creation Realm was an existence that surpassed the Bright World Realm. Their strength was extremely terrifying. Even the solar system, it was a giant existence. It should be known that the ruler of the solar system was only at the peak of the creation realm. Although this kid's cloth bag is also a treasure, I wonder if it can contain this creator-level origin artifact? Moronu pondered. The young man's cloth bag had the ability to ignore restrictions and formations and could directly collect those sealed treasures. This was a rare treasure. Moronu estimated that this cloth bag was at least a bright world realm origin artifact. However, now that he was facing a creator-level origin artifact, would his cloth bag be enough? Of course, if it was not enough, Moronu was prepared to make a move. He would definitely not let go of this creator-level origin artifact. He could give up other things, but he definitely could not give up on this origin artifact. Haha, this creator-level origin artifact is mine from now on. The young man laughed loudly, opened the cloth bag, and swallowed the origin artifact. Under Moronu's gaze, the sealed creator-level origin artifact was swallowed by the cloth bag without any resistance. Rumble. However, the moment the Yuan artifact was taken away, the entire treasury began to shake violently. Presumably, the origin artifact was connected to other formations. Once it was taken away, that formation would immediately be triggered and inform everyone. It's over. The young man's expression changed drastically. Then, Moronu saw him take out a talisman and slap it on his body. Whoosh! Before Moronu could react, the young man had already appeared in an unfamiliar place. After the young man disappeared, a huge divine thought quickly enveloped the entire treasure vault. However, when he saw the empty treasure vault, he was stunned. The old man who was guarding outside the treasure vault let out an earth-shattering roar. Then his body swayed, and he directly smashed the metal door of the treasure vault and rushed into the treasure vault. What happened? Why did the treasure vault? Just as the old man rushed into the treasure vault, several other figures appeared out of thin air. Each of them exuded an extremely powerful aura, and the weakest of them was at the same level as the old man. There were even a few whose auras were more vast and powerful than the old man's. The Bright World Realm powerhouse who asked the question didn't continue asking because they all saw the empty treasure vault. Even their Bright World Realm origin treasures had been stolen. Who was it? Who was so audacious? Many Bright World Realm powerhouses were furious. Waves of terrifying aura constantly exuded from their bodies, and the impact caused the entire treasure vault to creak as if it would shatter at any time. One of the Bright World Realm powerhouses didn't speak. He immediately formed a few seals with both hands and imprinted them in the void. The next moment, a complete image appeared in front of everyone. It was the scene of the young man leisurely collecting the treasures. "It's the young master," the old man exclaimed. The faces of the other Bright World Realm experts turned gloomy. Pooh! A middle-aged man who looked similar to the young man couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He was the master of the Sky Sea sect, the young man's father. When he saw his son's masterpiece with his own eyes, how could he not vomit blood? It's a teleportation talisman. He used a teleportation talisman to escape. Chase! One of the Bright World Realm powerhouses roared. Then, his figure flashed as he chased after the young man. The other Sky Sea sect powerhouses also chased after the young man. Fortunately, I obtained a teleportation talisman before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to escape. Now, I'm really free. The young man was overjoyed and immediately wanted to leave. But all of a sudden, he stopped in his tracks. At the same time, the expression on his face stiffened. "Hand over your pouch. Don't try to play tricks with me. Otherwise, you'll die." A cold voice sounded in the young man's ears. At the same time, a terrifying murderous aura enveloped the young man. The young man's heart was instantly enveloped by an intense aura of death. He knew that if he didn't obey that voice, he would die without a doubt. However, he wasn't a fool. How could he hand over the pouch so easily? Not to mention that the pouch itself was an extremely precious treasure, but the pouch contained the treasures of the entire Sky Sea sect for countless years. Haha, senior, you must have mistaken me for someone else. What pouch do I have? Cut the crap. It's the pouch that you used to devour all the treasures of the Sky Sea sect. I'll only give you 3 seconds. If you don't hand it over after 3 seconds, I'll take it myself." Cold sweat trickled down the young man's forehead. This mysterious voice actually knew so clearly? In other words, he had been secretly watching him all this while, but he hadn't noticed anything. This person was at least a bright world realm powerhouse. The young man thought to himself. He was almost scared to death. "Ha ha, Senior, I was frightened just now, so I couldn't remember for a moment. However, I suddenly remembered. I'll give his pouch to you." As he spoke, the young man reluctantly threw out the pouch that contained the treasures of the Sky Sea sect over countless years. He didn't dare to tamper with it. Moron-yu directly took the pouch and was about to leave. However, before he left, he kindly reminded the young man, "Kid, hurry up and run. If I'm not wrong, the powerhouses of the Sky Sea sect will be here soon." Before he finished speaking, Moron-yu had already teleported away through the Hichu Luo-shu. The young man was shocked. Then, he stretched out his body and tried to escape. However, he was soon enveloped by several terrifying auras. "Unfilial son, why aren't you surrendering?" The voice of the Sky Sea sect's sect master was heard. The young man's legs turned to jelly, and he directly lay on the ground. "Unfilial son, hand over the treasures." "Father, the treasures were all snatched by a mysterious person. They're not in my hands." The young master of the Sky Sea sect cried bitterly. However, how could the Sky Sea sect's sect master and the others believe him? Thus, they directly searched, but they didn't find anything. In the end, the sect master directly read the young man's memories. Thus, he saw the scene of Moron-yu snatching the treasures. However, Moron-yu didn't show up from the beginning to the end. In other words, they didn't know who had snatched their treasures. "You unfilial son, you're infuriating me." The sect master of the Sky Sea sect slapped the young man unconscious. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Then his eyes rolled back, and he actually fainted. A dignified, bright world realm powerhouse actually fainted from anger. The young man's skills were really good. He was probably comparable to the creation realm, right? What a bastard. The other bright world realm ancestors of the Sky Sea sect were so angry that their faces turned green. However, they didn't kill the young man. Instead, they sent a group of people to try to track down Moron-yu. The other group of people brought the Heavenly Ocean sect master and the others back to the sect. Chapter 1881. While the patriarchs of the Sky Sea sect were searching for Moron-yu, Moron-yu had already left the Sky Sea sect. No matter how the patriarchs of the Sky Sea sect searched, they could not imagine that Moron-yu's ability was so heaven-defying that he could teleport away without leaving a trace. At that moment, Moron-yu had already booked a room in an inn in the city and called the Demoness out of her space treasure. "You entered the Sky Sea sect's treasure vault." The Demoness had not used her divine telekinesis, so she had no idea what had happened. Thus, she asked as soon as she appeared. Moron-yu waved his hand and threw the cloth bag in the young man's hand to her. The Demoness' eyes immediately lit up as she looked at the cloth bag. This is at least a creator-level origin artifact. As she spoke, she had already caught the cloth bag. At the same time, she used her divine telekinesis to probe the cloth bag. Moron-yu looked at the Demoness indifferently and did not say anything. He did not even check the contents of the cloth bag, because he already knew what was inside. He was not afraid that the Demoness would steal it. As expected, the Demoness threw the cloth bag to Moron-yu with a look of disappointment after taking a look. On the other hand, Moron-yu was watching everything unfold before his eyes. The Demoness must have had her reasons for wanting him to steal from the Sky Sea sect's treasure vault. Presumably, the cloth bag did not have what she needed. "What? You don't have what you want?" Moron-yu looked at the Demoness with a smile. The Demoness immediately nodded, but quickly reacted. She shook her head and said with a look of disdain, "I don't care about these things in a low-level sect like the Sky Sea sect. You can have them all." She would rather die than admit that she had ulterior motives. However, so what if she did not admit it? Moron had already guessed it. "How did you empty the Sky Sea sect's treasure vault?" There were so many treasures in the cloth bag that the demoness could tell at a glance that she had almost emptied the Sky Sea Sect's treasure vault. Moreover, there was a creation realm origin artifact in the pouch. Although the Sky Sea Sect was one of the top sects in the Sky Martial world, they only had one origin tool at the creation realm. Murong-yu only smiled and did not reply. The demoness rolled her eyes at Murong-yu. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. I don't want to know anyway. However, not long after she said that, she asked again, Brat, how did you enter the Sky Sea Sect and empty their treasury? Murong-yu continued to smile and didn't say anything. However, the demonic woman didn't give up and asked a few more times. It was as if she had to know. In fact, the Sky Sea Sect had many Bright World Realm experts. Murong-yu was only a Rebirth Realm expert, but he could empty their treasures. Even the Bright World Realm and Creation Realm experts wanted to know the reason, let alone the demoness. Do you really want to know? Murong-yu finally spoke after repeatedly rejecting him more than 10 times. The demoness rolled her eyes. Nonsense. If I didn't want to know, why would I keep asking? Tell me your plan, and I'll tell you how I obtained these treasures, Murong-yu said with a smile. The demoness pondered for a moment and finally agreed. It seemed like she really wanted to know how Murong-yu emptied the Sky Sea Sect's treasury. I've been stuck in a Bright World realm for a long time. I've always been just a step away from breaking through. However, I've always been lacking that little bit of comprehension. Not long ago, I learned that a Heaven's Inquisition divine vine appeared in the Sky Martial world. This divine vine can increase one's comprehension ability. Most importantly, the Heaven's Inquisition divine vine can increase one's chances of breaking through to the creation realm by 30%. Murong-yu suddenly understood. So, you came to snatch it? Aren't you some outstanding disciple of the Lunar Sect? The Lunar Sect should have creation realm experts, right? Or maybe your master is one. You can ask them for help. If the Lunar Sect says something, the Sky Sea Sect and other sects will tremble, right? The demoness shook her head. You don't understand. I had to obtain these treasures myself. After saying this, the demoness rolled her eyes at Murong-yu. Brat, hurry up and tell me. Murong-yu smiled. It's very simple. I've been hiding outside the Sky Sea Sect, waiting for an opportunity. However, not long ago, a young man appeared out of thin air. Moreover, this guy was too happy. He naturally said that he had already obtained all the treasures in the Sky Sea Sect's treasury. Then I knocked him out with a stick and took the pouch away. It's that simple. The demoness looked at Murong-yu suspiciously. It's that simple. Murong-yu nodded. As if I believe you. The demoness didn't believe him at all. However, Murong-yu still persisted. In fact, almost everything Murong-yu said was true. He just hid some facts and didn't say them. Even now, he still didn't completely trust the demoness. Moreover, who knew if the Heaven's Inquisition divine vine that the demoness said was true? All right, with the Sky Sea Sect's treasures, I can break through to the Chaos Realm. I'll go cultivate first. Murong-yu grabbed the pouch and entered the Hichu Luo Shu. The demoness was stunned. Then, she went crazy. This guy clearly had a treasure space that could store a living person, but he had stored himself in an ordinary spatial treasure. It was really too abominable. In the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong-yu poured out some of the Bright World Realm origin tools that he had obtained from the Sky Sea Sect. Although a Chaotic Void Realm origin artifact could still increase his strength, it was not very effective. Therefore, Murong-yu had to refine even more powerful origin tools to break through. However, although the Sky Sea Sect was one of the top sects in the Tianmu world, there weren't many Bright World Realm origin tools. In fact, there were less than 100 of them. However, this should be enough for Murong-yu to break through. Therefore, Murong-yu began to refine. As the Bright World Realm origin tools were refined, Murong-yu's strength continued to increase. Finally, as Murong-yu's body trembled slightly, he finally succeeded in breaking through to the next realm. Chaos Realm. After breaking through, Murong-yu didn't stop refining the origin tools. Instead, he continued to refine them. A huge amount of energy flowed into his body endlessly, increasing his strength and stabilizing his strength and realm rapidly. However, when Murong Yu completely stabilized his realm at level 1 Chaos Realm, he stopped refining the origin tools. Those Bright World Realm origin treasures should be able to raise his cultivation level to level 2 Chaotic Space Realm. After refining the Creation Realm origin tool, his realm might even break through to the peak of the Chaos Realm or even the Bright World Realm. However, that appearance was simply too shocking. If Murong Yu was alone, he would definitely continue to increase his strength. However, he had a demonic woman by his side now. He didn't want to be captured by the demonic woman and the people from the lunar sect to be studied like a lab rat. It's at least 100 times stronger than before. After Murong Yu sensed his strength, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. If he were to face Lin Xiongshi again, he wouldn't need to use any other methods or array formations. He could kill Lin Xiongshi with a single punch. Moreover, after breaking through to the Chaos Realm, Murong Yu felt that his space rules of order had improved significantly. His ability to control space had become stronger and was probably comparable to some high-level Chaos Realm experts. Even his time rules of order had improved. In fact, it wasn't just these improvements. After Murong Yu broke through, the 9 syllables of truth had improved as well. He used the time to familiarize himself with his new strength. After delaying for another 3 days, Murong Yu finally came out of the Hichu Luo Shu. You broke through. The demonic woman looked at Murong Yu as if she was looking at a monster. Her face was filled with disbelief. Murong Yu immediately felt a little guilty. What a monster! When I broke through to the Chaos Realm from the Rebirth Realm, it took me a whole 10 years. I'm a number 1 genius of a younger generation of the lunar sect, but you actually used less than 5 days. The demonic woman felt it was unfair and rolled her eyes at Murong Yu. Murong Yu felt even more guilty. In the end, he came out too quickly. In fact, he didn't even need half a day to break through. If he came out immediately after breaking through, wouldn't he scare the demonic woman to death? Come, let's go to the lunar sect. After breaking through, Murong Yu was in a good mood. Moreover, the cultivators in the Tianwu world were still a little weak. It wasn't enough to support him to break through to the Bright World Realm or even the Creation Realm. Only by going to the higher level origin star could he break through sooner. Moreover, he wanted to join a large sect. Being alone was really too disadvantageous for collecting information. However, just as Murong Yu was about to leave, he suddenly stopped. At the same time, an even brighter smile appeared on his face. Because at that moment, his clone, Murong the Dragon, had finally successfully broken through the Rebirth Realm and appeared on the Water Cloud planet. With Murong Long's posture and the fact that he practiced the Sun Sutra, which was the Sun Sovereign Sun Sutra, he might have reached Blessed Realm at the very least. Moreover, Murong the Dragon had a much better advantage than Murong Yu's original body. He didn't need as much power as Murong Yu to break through. His appetite was far less big than Murong Yu's. Therefore, it was very likely that Murong the Dragon would catch up and surpass Murong Yu in one fell swoop. However, this could only be beneficial for Murong Yu, because that was his clone. Your smile is so disgusting. The demonic woman couldn't bear to see Murong Yu happy, because not only did she not obtain the heavens questioning divine vine in the Tianwu world, she was almost killed. Even now, she still hadn't recovered her strength. Demonic woman, can I join the lunar sect? Murong Yu looked at the demonic woman and suddenly asked. Of course you can. The demonic woman replied without hesitation. Then, if you break through to the creation realm, what will your position in the lunar sect be? A thought suddenly appeared in Murong Yu's mind. Murong Yu planned to help the demonic woman break through to the creation realm. Then, if he joined the lunar sect, he could smoothly increase his strength quickly. Chapter 1882. With a backer, it will be much easier to do things. This was the experience that Murong Yu had gained after many years of experience. Didn't the Demoness say that only the lunar sect could compete with the solar sect in the solar system. Murong-yu wasn't interested in becoming the ruler of the solar system. He was only interested in increasing his own strength. A large sect like the lunar sect was just right for him to join. The demoness looked at Murong-yu suspiciously. She couldn't understand why Murong-yu would suddenly help her. Could it be that he really wanted to join the lunar sect? Even if he wanted to join the lunar sect, he didn't need to do this, right? Could it be that this brat admires me a lot? Is that why he wants me to change my heart? Is that why he wants the heavens questioning divine vine? This thought suddenly appeared in the demoness' mind. After this thought appeared, it couldn't be stopped. Very quickly, the demoness confirmed that this was the reason. If Murong-yu knew what the demoness was thinking, he probably wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry, right? Firstly, I don't know who has the heavens questioning divine vine. Secondly, even if I know, how are you going to get it? Those people are all at the peak of the bright world realm. Even I am no match for them, let alone you. The demoness expressed her serious doubts. Although Murong-yu's strength had increased, there was still a gap of 2 realms between him and the peak of the bright world realm. This was like the gap between a mortal and a sage. The gap between them was insurmountable. Murong-yu glared at the demoness. I didn't say that I can definitely get it for you. I just want to try. If you aren't willing, we can return to the lunar sect now. I will do what I say. The demoness smiled. Then let's go find the heavens questioning divine vine. Before she finished speaking, the demoness pulled Murong-yu and quickly left the inn. In the Qianwu world, a peak bright world realm ancestor could dominate the world. However, the 6 great sects like the Sky Sea sect had half-step creation realm existences. It was precisely because of these 6 half-step bright world realm ancestors that the 6 great sects were able to dominate the martial heaven world. They were the true overlords of the martial heaven world, ruling it together. Sky Sea sect, Profound Ice Island, Dual Polarity sect, Black Tortoise Tower, Divine sect, and World Dominators. Now, other than the Tianhai sect's treasury, which had been emptied by Murong-yu, the other treasuries had not been touched. Moreover, even though the treasury of the Sky Sea sect had been emptied, Murong-yu and the demoness weren't sure if the Heaven's Inquisition vine was in their hands. After all, it was possible that they had been refined into elixirs or devoured by their half-step creation realm ancestors. It's impossible for the Heaven's Inquisition divine vine to be refined into pills. This was because one would lose at least 30% of the medicinal efficacy after refining the pill. Only by swallowing it directly could the medicinal efficacy be maximized. All the patriarchs of the 6 major forces wanted to break through, but only one person could achieve it. Furthermore, even if they obtained it, they would have to leave the Tianwu world and go to the higher level Yuanqing to cultivate. That's because the heaven martial world's Yuan Qi is not enough to produce creation realm existences. The demoness explained with a frown. Murong-yu looked at the demoness with a helpless expression. So what? Let's go and investigate first, then go and take the Heaven's Inquisition vine. Even if the 6 major forces obtain it, it will take some time for them to divide it. How are they going to investigate? Murong-yu and the demoness first went to the city where they were to investigate. The news of the theft of the Sky Sea sect had not spread. In fact, other than Murong-yu, the culprit, only the people from the Sky Sea sect knew about it. How could they leak the news? Wouldn't that make them the laughing stock of the world? Even if they wanted to kill them, they could only do so in secret. Other than this, there was no other news about the Heaven's Inquisition vine. However, a piece of news caught the attention of Murong-yu and the demoness. In a month, the 6 major forces would join forces to explore the Golden Embryo secret realm. They were now recruiting ambitious people to explore the Golden Embryo secret realm together. The strangest thing was that the 6 major forces did not limit the strength of the people they recruited. Regardless of whether they were Bright World Realm ancestors, Chaotic Void Realm experts, or even Rebirth Realm experts, they were all welcome. However, the 6 major forces did not want any benefits obtained in the Golden Embryo secret realm. It was all personal gain. After hearing the news, the word cannon fodder appeared in Murong-yu's mind. The 6 major forces would definitely not share the benefits with outsiders when exploring the secret realm. The people they needed were cannon fodder. Or perhaps, these people's strength was not much. However, there were many benefits to having more people. Some secret realms and danger zones could be filled with people. In fact, there were many smart people in this world. Many people knew that the 6 major forces were recruiting cannon fodder. However, there were still many people who flocked to the Golden Embryo's secret realm. These people were all people who thought they were lucky. Aren't there many people like me? Aren't there bright world realm ancestors of the 6 major forces? If they eat meat, we can at least drink soup, right? Most importantly, the Golden Embryo secret realm was one of the most terrifying secret realms in the Tianwu world. No one had ever been able to enter it. If no one could enter it, it meant that the treasures inside had never been taken by anyone. It meant that there were many treasures inside. With such thoughts, a large number of people flocked to the Golden Embryo secret realm. Murong looked at the Demoness. Demoness, are you sure that the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine was taken by the 6 major forces? Why do I feel that the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine is inside the Golden Embryo secret realm? The Demoness smiled shyly. I'm not very sure about this. I only know that the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine appeared in the Tianwu world. Then, I killed my way to the 6 major forces. Murong, you had the urge to vomit blood. Wasn't this Demoness too awesome? She didn't even investigate clearly and directly killed her way over? If she revealed her identity, or if she was accompanied by a creation realm expert, the 6 major forces might submit. However, she was alone. Wasn't that just asking for a beating? Thus, Murong looked at the Demoness with disdain. The Demoness became more and more embarrassed. In the end, she could only roll her eyes at Murong. The existence of the Golden Embryo secret realm was not a secret. It was very convenient to travel back and forth. It was not far from the Golden Embryo City. The Golden Embryo City was a flourishing city because of the Golden Embryo secret realm. Although the Golden Embryo secret realm was terrifying, there were many cultivators who came to admire it every day. Moreover, there were always some cultivators who did not believe in the Golden Embryo secret realm. They kept entering the Golden Embryo secret realm to explore. In the end, none of them came out. This further enhanced the reputation of the Golden Embryo secret realm and attracted even more people to come to the secret realm. Thus, the Golden Embryo City never lacked prosperity. However, there were more people flocking to the Golden Embryo City now. There were so many people that the entire Golden Embryo City almost exploded. There were even more cultivators who could only stay outside the Golden Embryo City. The Golden Embryo secret realm could be entered at any time. However, no one went in now. According to the words of the 6 major forces, they didn't have enough experts at the moment, so they didn't have much confidence in finding out the truth. Murong and the Demoness had also arrived at the Golden Embryo City. However, the Demoness was depressed when she arrived at the Golden Embryo City. This was because there was no place to stay. Murong did not care about this. After all, he could enter the Hichu Luo Shu. After the Demoness threw a tantrum for a while, she could only enter the Hichu Luo Shu. This could not be helped. Murong did not want her to enter the Hichu Luo Shu. However, in the end, he was scared and allowed her to enter. However, he restricted a part of the Demoness area of activity. He did not want the Demoness to find out the truth about the Hichu Luo Shu. The endless starry sky was too terrifying. There were countless experts who could kill Murong with just a breath. Murong did not want to die young. Anyway, there was still a month's time. Although Murong did not want to go overboard, he still could not help but start refining the remaining Bright World grade origin treasures. Only by increasing his strength would he have a greater chance of obtaining the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine or other treasures. However, his appetite was too terrifying. After consuming dozens of Bright World grade origin treasures, his realm had only just risen to the 2nd level of the Chaotic Realm. His strength soared again. It was at least 100 times stronger than before. However, his strength was too weak compared to a Bright World Realm expert. He was so weak that he could not even block a finger of the other party. If Murong were to face a Bright World Realm expert on his own, he wouldn't be able to stop them. It was not that Murong Yu was too weak. With Murong Yu's current strength, it was no problem for him to fight across a few small realms. However, at these realms, the gap between each small realm was huge, let alone the gap between major realms. The gap in strength is still too slow. Murong Yu shook his head, somewhat dissatisfied with his improvement speed. However, when he appeared in front of the demoness, she was so frightened that she took a few steps back. You broke through again? Brat, you broke through again? The demoness pointed at Murong Yu. She could not even speak clearly at the beginning. She had no choice but to be stunned by Murong Yu. Murong Yu shook his head. I know that my breakthrough speed is too slow, but you don't have to look down on me like that, right? Despicable. Look, you. The demoness naturally interpreted this sentence as Murong Yu's smugness. Do you have to be so smug? The demoness gritted her teeth and looked at Murong Yu, having the urge to slap him. However, she had no strength now. If she slapped Murong Yu, she would definitely be slapped back. Therefore, she could only suppress the thought of slapping Murong Yu. She would wait until he recovered his strength before slapping Murong Yu again. Let him continue to be smug. However, the demoness also had a strong sense of crisis in her heart. She felt that at this speed, it would not be long before Murong Yu surpassed her. No, I must recover my strength quickly. If I want to slap him, I will not have the chance in the future. The demoness gritted her teeth and said, Demoness, let me see if I can help you recover your strength. Murong Yu said, then stretched out his hand and pressed the demoness down. Chapter 1883. The seductress had lost her strength and was unable to resist at all. She was directly suppressed by Murong Yu and sat on the ground. However, the seductress calmly cast a coquettish glance at Murong Yu and said, Little guy, do you have to be so impatient? Why don't we go to the room? Big sister will definitely cooperate with you. Murong Yu glared at the seductress. He didn't know if this seductress was acting out of her nature or if she was taking special care of Murong Yu, but she kept seducing Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu was a married man, and his wives were no less beautiful than the seductress. Most importantly, Murong Yu didn't want to have any more wives now. Therefore, he was completely oblivious to the seductress's seduction. Don't move. After the seductress was suppressed, she kept moving around. Her graceful figure kept appearing in front of Murong Yu. Unfortunately, Murong Yu wasn't interested in the seductress at all now. As he spoke, Murong Yu had already sat cross-legged on the seductress. At the same time, his big hands directly covered the seductress's back. The seductress's body trembled slightly, and a touch of red appeared on her face unconsciously. However, her attention was quickly attracted by Murong Yu. A power full of life aura quickly rushed from Murong Yu's hands into the seductress's body. Wherever the life force passed, the demoness could feel her injured body recovering at a faster rate. Although the recovery speed wasn't very fast, it was much faster than the seductress's automatic recovery speed. The seductress estimated that if this situation continued, her injuries would be completely healed in less than a month's time, and her strength would also be restored to its peak state. It wasn't that Murong Yu's life force had such a great effect on her. The recovery speed of life force was definitely the fastest. There was no doubt about it. However, due to the limitations of Murong Yu's own strength, the amount of life force he could use to heal a Bright World Realm expert was almost negligible. Murong Yu was quite dissatisfied. However, this was from his point of view. In fact, the seductress was already quite satisfied with the recovery speed. Moreover, Murong Yu only needed to partially recover the seductress's injuries. As the seductress recovered, her strength would become stronger and stronger. The stronger she was, the faster her recovery ability would be. Seductress, according to this situation, how long will it take for her to fully recover? After a while, Murong Yu suddenly asked. He wanted to restore the seductress's strength. That way, their chances of obtaining the treasures after entering the secret to enter the secret realm to obtain treasures. When they enter the secret realm to obtain. Moreover, with the seductresses, to the worldses, to the bright world, to the twos, to be to obtain, to is. Murto them, to s to be to fightses, twoses, 1 month. Murong golden to be to s's today, used before Murto himself, titis, to recover, as he spoke, an even greater amount of life force surged madly into the Yao woman's body to rapidly heal her wounds. Due to time constraints, Murong Yu did not accelerate time, although there were many treasures in the endless starry sky that could accelerate time. They could only accelerate it by a few times at most. Hichu Luo Shu, on the other hand, was able to accelerate time by countless years in an instant. In fact, even if Murong Yu wanted to speed up time, he couldn't. At this moment, Hichu Luo Shu had already been upgraded to the level of Origin Tool. The grade of a Chaotic Void Realm Origin Weapon would increase as Murong Yu's strength increased. At the level of an Essence Tool, at the very least, it required Essence Crystals to be able to operate. As for Murong Yu, he was currently penniless and had no Origin Crystals at all. Time passed slowly as the demonic woman's strength continued to recover. Finally, a month later, the demoness gently leaped up from the ground with a smile on her face. "Little fellow, elder sister has already recovered her strength. What do you think? Do you regret it now? You didn't push me down before my sister recovered? Well, I'll give you another chance." Not interested, Murong Yu glanced at the demoness. Then, with a thought, the two of them appeared from Hichu Luo Shu. When they appeared in Golden Embryo City, they realized that the originally crowded Golden Embryo City was now empty. Originally, they were supposed to enter Golden Embryo City in a month. Murong Yu had used a few days to cultivate and another month to help the demoness recover. According to the time of the 6 forces, they should have been in the Golden Embryo Secret Realm for 3 to 5 days. Let's go in 2. This time, we must get the heavens inquiring divine vine. The demoness soared into the sky with a murderous aura and shot toward the entrance of the Golden Embryo Secret Realm outside Golden Embryo City. Murong Yu followed suit. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two of them instantly disappeared from the entrance of the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. When they reappeared, they were already in a golden world. The sky was golden, and so was the earth. Everything in the Golden Embryo Mystic Realm was golden in color. These are all metals? Murong Yu suddenly frowned. This was because he realized that the earth, the mountains, and even the trees were all made of metal. Was this a metal world? Roar! Just as Murong Yu was puzzled, a roar that sounded like a broken gong came from his side. Murong Yu looked in the direction of the roar and saw a ray of golden light shooting toward him at an extremely fast speed. It was an ordinary-looking wolf that was not an ordinary wolf. The reason why the wolf looked ordinary was because it was just an ordinary wolf. As for why it was not ordinary, that was because the wolf seemed to be made of metal. It was a rebirth state metal wolf. Murong Yu took a step forward and threw a punch. Murong Yu's punch contained the strength of an intermediate rebirth state. It was slightly stronger than the metal wolf. This was because the metal wolf was just a lower rebirth state. Bang! After a loud sound of metal colliding, the metal wolf let out a miserable cry and was sent flying by Murong Yu. Murong Yu's right fist was also trembling slightly. The demoness even noticed that Murong Yu's fist was bleeding. He was actually injured. Roar! After the metal wolf was sent flying, it quickly fell heavily to the ground. However, it jumped up as if nothing had happened and pounced toward Murong Yu again. Murong Yu frowned. He finally understood why the Golden Embryo Secret Realm was called the Golden Embryo Secret Realm and why it was the most terrifying secret realm in the Sky Martial world. This was because this seemingly inconspicuous metal wolf's physical body was as strong as a low-grade rebirth state origin artifact. Murong Yu had used a strength that was a few levels higher than the metal wolf, but he was unable to kill it. Instead, he was killed. What if it was someone else? They could only run for their lives. Murong Yu took another step forward. This time, he used the strength of a higher rebirth state origin item. Without any suspense, the metal wolf was once again sent flying. This time, the metal wolf pounced at him again at an extremely fast speed. However, a smile appeared on Moronyu's face. This was because he noticed that cracks had appeared on the metal wolf's body. Bang! 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 Moronyu charged forward. His divine fist was invincible as he threw more than 10 punches. Finally, after Moronyu's punch landed on the metal wolf's body exploded. Golden blood spurted out, and the metal wolf's life force quickly dissipated. However, the metal wolf's shattered body turned into pieces of metal. This made Moronyu feel very strange. This was because he had never encountered such a situation before. Moreover, although he had easily killed the metal wolf, he was still able to kill it. However, one had to know that Moronyu was now a level 2 chaotic realm origin item. On the other hand, the metal wolf was only a low-level rebirth realm, a rank 3 rebirth realm ferocious beast. What if the other party was an intermediate rebirth state origin item or an advanced rebirth state origin item? Moronyu was confident that he could kill them. However, what if the beast was a chaotic realm origin item? Could Moronyu kill it? There was an answer to this question very soon. As they went deeper, Moronyu and Jian Wushuang kept encountering metal beasts. Low rebirth state origin item, intermediate rebirth state origin item, and advanced rebirth state origin item. When it came to advanced rebirth state beasts, Moronyu could no longer kill them with his bare hands. Although Moronyu was strong, the beasts were not as strong as Moronyu. However, their bodies were strong. They were almost invulnerable. Even if Moronyu used a high-grade rebirth stage origin tool, he still wouldn't be able to kill it. In the end, he had to rely on a chaotic realm origin item to kill the beast. However, if he encountered a chaotic realm dire beast, he wouldn't be able to kill it quickly. Moronyu could slowly torture the other party to death. In fact, Moronyu could also use soul attacks. Although metal beasts were made of metal, they were also living beings. Living beings had souls. However, Moronyu did not believe that the souls of these metal beasts were also made of metal. However, Moronyu did not expose his ability to use soul attacks. It was better not to expose too much when he was weak. The more he exposed, the faster he would die. In the end, the demoness could not stand it and attacked. With her peak bright world realm strength, she could easily kill low-level chaotic space realm beasts. Therefore, the two of them did not slow down and continued to go deeper. During this process, Moronyu found many cultivator corpses. However, Moronyu believed that even more cultivator corpses had been smashed into meat paste. Cultivators, even those who had reached the level they were at, were mostly ordinary cultivators. Even with Moronyu's strength, he had to spend some time to kill these metal beasts, let alone them. There were heavy casualties. However, although their speed was not fast, it was definitely not slow. When Moronyu and Jian Wushuang caught up with the main group, they had already entered the central region of the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. Of course, no one knew how deep the Golden Embryo Secret Realm was. The central region was just divided by the 6 major forces. Chapter 1884. Hundreds of millions of experts had entered the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. Moreover, these people had all gathered together and advanced together. In this terrifying Golden Embryo Secret Realm, no one dared to leave the group. Not to mention the other dangers in the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. Just the metal beasts alone were enough to make them pale. However, even so, there were still quite a number of casualties on their side. When Moronyu and the demoness caught up with them, there were only tens of millions of people left. There were less than 100 million of them left. This number was probably less than 1/10 of the number when they had entered the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. However, because there were many treasures in the Golden Embryo Secret Realm, these people did not retreat even though they saw the threat of death. Along the way, Moronyu and the demoness didn't come across any valuable treasures aside from the ferocious beasts they encountered. That was because these treasures had all been plundered by the people in front of them. Now, they had encountered some difficulties and had been stuck here for many days. A few beasts of different races appeared in front of them. There were lions and tigers. However, without exception, They were all high-level Bright World Realm existences. 10 high-level Bright World Realm beasts had blocked the advance of tens of millions of experts. Among these experts, there were many high-level Bright World Realm existences and even peak Bright World Realm existences. The 10 high-level Bright World Realm beasts did not attack. They just looked at the crowd from a distance and roared occasionally. The cultivators did not attack either. In fact, the only ones who could compete with these high-level Bright World Realm ferocious beasts were the high-level Bright World Realm ancestors. The others were simply courting death. Muronyu took a look and did not see the 6 half-step Destiny Realm ancestors of the 6 forces. He wondered if they had not entered this place. Those 6 cowards must be hiding at the side, the Demoness said with some disdain. It was no wonder that the Demoness had such a strong opinion of the 6 half-step Destiny Realm ancestors. Those 6 people were the main culprits who had caused the Demoness to lose her strength and almost die in the end. Boom, boom, boom. However, before the Demoness could finish her sentence, countless waves of incomparably violent energy erupted from the crowd. Streams of energy soared into the sky, carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. They locked onto the 10 high-level Bright World Realm ferocious beasts and attacked them. At the same time, more than 20 figures flew out from the crowd and pounced on the 10 ferocious beasts. Roar! 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 The 10 metal ferocious beasts roared and soared into the air, charging at the great ancestors who were rushing over. In the blink of an eye, the two sides had already clashed, erupting with an incomparably terrifying might. Swish! The crowd instantly retreated. In a battle of this level, just the shockwave alone was enough to kill them. If they didn't retreat, they would be courting death. Thus, everyone retreated again and again. The only ones who didn't retreat too far were the Bright World Realm experts. However, these people had long since increased their strength and neutralized the aura and pressure of the impact. Muronyu pulled the Demoness and retreated. Although the Demoness wasn't willing to retreat, Muronyu didn't want to attract too much attention. Moreover, with Murongyu's current strength, he wouldn't be able to withstand the impact of the shockwave. Bad. Too bad. These so-called great ancestors can't even withstand a single blow. The Demoness shook her head as she watched the battle in front of her. She had a look of disdain on her face. Muronyu, who was standing beside her, took a few steps to the side with a dark expression, increasing the distance between him and the Demoness. The Demoness didn't deliberately lower her voice, so the surrounding people looked at her as if she was a monster. Although this woman is beautiful, she doesn't seem to be very smart. The surrounding people thought so in their hearts. Little did they know that the Demoness wasn't dumb. She was speaking the truth. Although the Demoness cultivation base was the same as those great ancestors, in a one-on-one battle, those great ancestors were definitely no match for her. After all, the Lunar Sect and the Tianwu world were on 2 different levels. Regardless of whether it was the cultivation techniques or battle techniques that the Demoness cultivated or her knowledge and experience, those great ancestors couldn't compare to her. Demoness, since you're so arrogant, why don't you go and deal with those ferocious beasts? After all, they're blocking our way. Muronyu couldn't help but say. The Demoness immediately looked at Muronyu as if she was looking at an idiot. The Gold Embryo secret realm is so big. Why must we pass through here? Can't we go through other places? Then why don't you go? Muronyu was speechless. The Golden Embryo secret realm was filled with powerful, ferocious beasts. If possible, why would those great ancestors be willing to fight against those high-level Bright World Realm ferocious beasts? It was because they knew that no matter where they passed through, they would encounter ferocious beasts of similar strength. Therefore, they might as well go all the way. Boom, boom, boom. The 6 half-step manifestation realm great ancestors were extremely powerful. They continuously sent those ferocious beasts flying. However, that was all. After they were sent flying, those ferocious beasts would pounce on them again. Their attacks couldn't do anything to those ferocious beasts. If it was only them, they could have charged indirectly. However, there were many people here. Although these people were weak, they were still useful to them. Therefore, after fighting for half a day, the great ancestors still couldn't do anything to those 10 ferocious beasts. Therefore, the great ancestors became ruthless. Almost at the same time, 5 extremely terrifying auras exploded from the 5 great ancestors. At the same time, Murong Yu and the rest saw origin weapons that emitted terrifying auras appear above the great ancestors' heads. Saber, sword, spear, pagoda, ring, and other 5 terrifying origin weapons. Origin weapons of the manifestation realm. The demoness eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. Swoosh! Murong Yu and the demoness looked at one of the great ancestors who was fighting fiercely. This great ancestor was the same as the great ancestor who had summoned the origin weapon of the manifestation realm. They were both half-step to the manifestation realm. However, he didn't summon the origin weapon of the manifestation realm. Murong Yu instantly confirmed his identity. This poor fellow must be the half-step to the manifestation realm great ancestor of the Sky Sea sect. The reason why he hadn't summoned the manifestation realm origin weapon was that the Sky Sea sect's most treasured origin weapon was in Murong Yu's hands. A half-step to the manifestation realm great ancestor could already unleash part of the manifestation realm origin weapon's power. The 5 great ancestors who had summoned the manifestation realm origin weapons displayed their might. The manifestation realm origin weapons slashed wildly. It didn't take long for their opponents to be killed one after another. The ferocious beasts were only powerful because of their invulnerable bodies. Without the advantage of their bodies, they were no match for the great ancestors. After killing their opponents, the 5 great ancestors went on a killing spree and killed the remaining 5 ferocious beasts. From the beginning to the end, the great ancestor of the Sky Sea sect had been doing nothing. Old man Sky Sea, what do you mean? We're all fighting with our lives on the line, but you're slacking off? A half-step to the manifestation realm great ancestor glowered at the great ancestor of the Sky Sea sect. The great ancestor of the Sky Sea sect was called Sky Sea, and he was the founder of the Sky Sea sect. At that moment, the old man smiled awkwardly. I forgot to bring the manifestation realm origin weapon. Puffed! When they heard this incomparably powerful reason, the surrounding people instantly spluttered. Meanwhile, the great ancestors of the other 5 factions flushed red with anger. They were so angry that their faces were flushed red. They'd forgotten to bring the manifestation realm origin weapon. Did they think they were 3-year-old babies? That they were so easily deceived? Sky Sea's heart bled as he looked at the furious great ancestors, and an inexplicable rage soared into the sky. If it hadn't been for his obedient grandson, the Sky Sea sect's treasury wouldn't have been stolen, and the manifestation realm origin weapon wouldn't have been stolen. Not only had his grandson tricked his father, but he'd also tricked him. This little bastard, I'll definitely teach him a lesson when we get back. Sky Sea's rage soared, and his killing intent soared. In his heart, he wanted to slap his obedient grandson to death. This was the good guy that Murong Yu had mentioned. Forget it. Let's continue, the great ancestor of the Mystic Islands said calmly. They definitely wouldn't believe that Sky Sea had forgotten to bring the manifestation realm origin weapon. They just thought that he didn't want to reveal his strength. The other patriarchs also glared angrily at Tian Hai, then took the lead and flew forward. Everyone hurriedly followed. Brat, why are you collecting these ferocious beast corpses? It's just some scrap metal. The demoness asked in confusion when she saw Murong Yu collect the 10 ferocious beast corpses. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Murong Yu smiled mysteriously. The demoness was so angry that she wanted to slap him away. In reality, these bright world realm ferocious beast corpses contained enormous power. Although a large portion of it had dissipated due to their deaths, it was still much more powerful than some chaotic realm origin weapons. It was perfect for Murong Yu to refine. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. A quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change. As long as Murong Yu devoured enough, his cultivation would naturally break through. After Murong Yu collected the ferocious beast's corpses, he began to secretly refine them. However, his appetite was shockingly large. Even after refining the ferocious beast's corpses, he only increased his strength by a little. However, after being discovered by the demoness, she called him a pervert. The 5 great ancestors who had taken out Manifestation Realm origin weapons were extremely terrifying. They were practically gods that could kill anything in their path. The high-tier, ferocious beasts they encountered along the way couldn't stop them at all. They kept going deeper and deeper. Murong Yu, who was in the crowd, was grinning from ear to ear. There was no one else other than him among the ferocious beast's corpses, so they all ended up in his pocket, turning into the most primitive energy that increased his strength. As they went deeper and deeper, his strength also increased rapidly. He was about to reach the peak of the 2nd level of the chaotic realm. Chapter 1885. Rumble. As Murong Yu's body trembled slightly, an obscure but very powerful aura emanated from his body and rushed in all directions. 3rd level chaotic space realm. Although Murong Yu had already tried his best to control the aura that erupted after his breakthrough, which of the people around him wasn't a powerhouse? Those powerhouses with a higher realm than Murong Yu could tell at a glance that Murong Yu's strength had already broken through. He broke through on the way? Those powerhouses looked at Murong Yu with shock, doubt, and even greed. Which one of them didn't need to find a quiet place to break through quietly? Otherwise, it was easy to be disturbed, and once disturbed, the breakthrough would fail. In more serious cases, one might even go berserk. Such a breakthrough was full of dangers. Moreover, Murong Yu didn't seem to have cultivated before. Could it be that he didn't need to comprehend or accumulate strength to break through at all? Some people were even more shocked to find that Murong Yu's strength was slowly increasing right under their noses. This kid's cultivation technique must be very advanced. He can break through any time and anywhere. Some powerhouses had this thought in their minds, and then some people slowly approached Murong Yu. All of them were Bright World Realm powerhouses. Murong Yu's expression changed slightly, and he glanced at the demonic woman beside him, who was shocked to the point of numbness. The demonic woman was expressionless, as if she didn't see those Bright World Realm powerhouses approaching. This demonic woman won't not help, right? Murong Yu secretly complained. Although he was only a low-level chaotic space realm powerhouse now, his strength was comparable to a mid-level chaotic space realm powerhouse. In fact, he even had the confidence to fight against a high-level chaotic void realm expert. However, these people weren't high-level chaotic space realm powerhouses, nor were they half-step Bright World Realm powerhouses. They were genuine Bright World Realm powerhouses. With Murong Yu's current strength, these people could kill him with a finger. Kid, hand over your cultivation technique. A Bright World Realm powerhouse stood in front of Murong Yu, and a terrifying power came crashing down on Murong Yu like a torrent. The impact caused Murong Yu's bones to emit a caw-caw sound, as if they would shatter at any time. The other Bright World Realm ancestors didn't say anything, but they all looked at Murong Yu with covetous and greedy gazes. However, their faces were full of disdain. It was as if he looked down on Murong Yu. In fact, they really looked down on Murong Yu. He was just a chaotic void realm expert, and they could kill him with a single finger. Why waste your breath on him? Just read his memories. At that moment, another Bright World Realm ancestor strode over with a sneer on his face. Before he even finished speaking, he had already stretched out his hand to grab Murong Yu. Murong Yu was infuriated, and a terrifying killing intent erupted from his body. Like a storm, it frantically strangled in all directions. So what if you're a Bright World Realm ancestor? Murong Yu roared and threw a punch at the other party's hand. When the Bright World Realm ancestor saw that Murong Yu actually dared to attack him, his expression changed slightly. Wasn't Murong Yu insulting him? He had already decided that once he got what he wanted from Murong Yu, he would kill him immediately. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the two big hands had already fiercely collided in the void. The Bright World Realm Ancestor's hand paused for a moment, but Murong Yu was directly sent flying. Boom! Crack! Crack! The sound of bones breaking constantly came from Murong Yu's body. Immediately afterward, Murong Yu spat out a mouthful of blood, and he looked extremely dispirited. Whoosh! The gazes of the surrounding people all gathered on the Bright World Realm Ancestor. In particular, the gazes of the Bright World Realm powerhouses were filled with ridicule. They were ridiculing the Bright World Realm Ancestor for suppressing Murong Yu with one blow and not being able to kill him with one blow. It was just a showy but impractical move. The Bright World Realm Ancestor was infuriated, and his killing intent towards Murong Yu intensified. He felt very humiliated, and the one who embarrassed him was Murong Yu. Therefore, he had to kill Murong Yu. Thus, he took a step forward and was about to attack again. At this moment, Murong Yu was already standing steadily in place. The life force in his body was frantically scouring. The bones that had been broken by the Bright World Realm Ancestor were rapidly recovering from the injuries. However, the power of the Bright World Realm Ancestor still remained in Murong Yu's body. In order to recover from his injuries, he had to get rid of this strange power first. Therefore, Murong Yu's recovery speed was much slower than normal. Even so, in the eyes of the surrounding people, his recovery speed was very terrifying. The more this was so, the more the surrounding people wanted to obtain Murong Yu's cultivation technique. You're just relying on the fact that you are one realm higher than me to suppress me. If I were at the Bright World Realm, I would be able to stab you to death with one finger. Murong Yu stepped forward step by step, looking at the Bright World Realm Ancestor who was about to attack again with disdain. The Bright World Realm Ancestor's face was very ugly, as he felt that Murong Yu was provoking him. Most importantly, he felt that Murong Yu was telling the truth. If they were at the same realm, he really wouldn't be Murong Yu's opponent. However, he was relying on his higher realm to suppress Murong Yu. So what? Thus, he let out a sinister laugh and extended his hand, intending to suppress Murong Yu. This time, he had already attacked with all his strength, hoping to suppress Murong Yu with one blow. Shameless! Some of the surrounding weaker cultivators cursed in their hearts. However, they didn't dare to say anything. Murong Yu, on the other hand, fearlessly stepped forward. In terms of realm and strength, he was not a Bright World Realm powerhouse. However, he had an invincible heart, not to mention a Bright World Realm powerhouse. Even if the other party was a Creation Realm powerhouse, he would not back down. Just as the Bright World Realm powerhouse was about to attack, the Demoness, who had been daydreaming, suddenly said, "I hate bullying the weak the most in my life." Perhaps she was thinking about how she had been suppressed by the ancestors of the six major forces, but when she said this, the Demoness was full of murderous intent. At the same time, the Demoness attacked. She formed a few complicated and obscure seals with both hands, then raised her hand to suppress the Bright World Realm Ancestor. Whoosh! All of a sudden, everyone's faces were filled with shock. This was because they clearly saw that the Bright World Realm powerhouse's strength was sealed. He had reached the same level as Murong Yu, level 3 Chaotic Space Realm. Whoosh! The surrounding people retreated at the same time, far away from Murong Yu and the Demoness. The Demoness means were too terrifying, and she could easily seal their realm. Under such circumstances, who could be their match? Even the Bright World Realm ancestors looked at the Demoness with fear. Without understanding the situation, they retreated far away. Same realm. Murong Yu's face lit up with ecstasy. He was an invincible existence within the same realm. Who was he afraid of? In his joy, Murong Yu was about to rush forward, but the Demoness voice sounded in his ears. "Brat, you can have some fun now. I can already smell the scent of the Heaven's Inquisition Godvine. I believe the Heaven's Inquisition Godvine is nearby. Moreover, the 6 old men have probably already discovered it. You guys shouldn't be able to attract their attention with your small fights." Murong Yu rolled his eyes. What do you mean by small fights? However, he had already made up his mind. These old men relied on their strength to suppress him, so it was time for him to fight back. Moreover, once the Heaven's Inquisition Godvine appeared, he would definitely snatch it. So what if the other party was a half-step to Creation Realm Powerhouse? He had Hichu Luo Shu, so what was he afraid of? Old man, come on, let me teach you a lesson. I'll let you know that you shouldn't take advantage of your seniority in front of me. Murong Yu laughed and punched out. The Bright World Realm Powerhouse was deeply stunned and couldn't react for a moment. By the time he reacted, Murong Yu's fist had already landed on his chest. Bang! The Bright World Realm Powerhouse was immediately sent flying. Little bastard, you're courting death. The Bright World Realm Powerhouse was furious and roared. However, how could he be Murong Yu's opponent when they were in the same realm? He was directly sent to the ground by Murong Yu. Did you eat shit today? Your mouth stinks. A cold light flashed in Murong Yu's eyes, and he rushed forward with his invincible divine fist again. The Bright World Realm Powerhouse was infuriated, and he unleashed a terrifying power, slapping at Murong Yu with a ferocious expression. He wanted to kill Murong Yu. However, he forgot that he was only in level 3 chaotic space realm now. With a boom, he was sent flying again by Murong Yu's punch. I've said before that if we're in the same realm, I can kill a piece of trash like you with a finger. Do you believe me now? Murong Yu's punch landed on the Bright World Realm Powerhouse's head, causing him to feel dizzy and see stars. Boom! Who told you to take advantage of your seniority? Murong Yu scolded and sent the other party flying with a punch. Then, with a flash of his body, he rushed up and punched his opponent again. Who told you to want to suppress me? Who told you to offend me? Who told you to be so greedy? With every sentence Murong Yu said, he punched the other party, causing the other party to be battered and exhausted. In the end, Murong Yu ran out of words and suddenly said, Who told you to be so ugly? You deserve to be beaten. Puffed. The surrounding people burst out laughing. However, no one dared to laugh, especially those Bright World Realm powerhouses who had besieged Murong Yu previously. They felt a chill down their spines. This was because they realized that there was an extremely powerful divine sense locking on to them. It should be the divine sense of the demonic woman. With the demoness strength at the half-step to manifestation realm, she could kill them with a single finger. It was easy for her to lock onto them with her divine sense. Chapter 1886. Under the deterrence of the demoness. Although the other high-level Bright World Realm powerhouses coveted Murong Yu's cultivation technique, no one dared to make a move. As for the 6 major forces and several other powerful ancestors, they simply ignored these small squabbles and focused their attention on the Heaven's Inquisition vine that was about to appear. Suddenly, the Bright World Realm ancestor that Murong Yu had abused let out a blood-curdling scream. Then, his entire body turned into a black shadow and flew backwards. During this process, this person's life aura was rapidly annihilated. When he landed on the ground, there was no longer any life aura on his body. A Bright World Realm ancestor had fallen. This was the first Bright World Realm ancestor to be killed by a cultivator after entering the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. Of course, Bright World Realm powerhouses weren't invincible when fighting the ferocious beasts of the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. Along the way, many of them had fallen. However, they were all low-level Bright World Realm powerhouses. Murong Yu had never shown mercy to those who wanted to kill him. Therefore, after he had tortured the other party enough and vented the frustration in his heart, he directly killed the other party. Who else? Murong Yu stood in place and shouted with a murderous aura. His eyes flickered with a cold light as he slowly swept his gaze across the faces of the surrounding ancestors. The Bright World Realm ancestors avoided Murong Yu's gaze after meeting his gaze. If it was just Murong Yu alone, they definitely wouldn't have allowed Murong Yu to be so arrogant and would have directly slapped him. However, now that there was the demoness and a Bright World Realm ancestor as an example, they didn't dare to fight with Murong Yu at all. Within the same realm, Murong Yu was invincible. They knew that they weren't Murong Yu's opponent. It's you. Murong Yu suddenly pointed at the Bright World Realm ancestor who had been the most arrogant just now. This was a young man with a sinister expression. Even with the demoness, this person still flickered with an obscure, murderous aura. Obviously, his killing intent towards Murong Yu had never decreased. Seeing Murong Yu pointing at him, the gloomy young man sneered and took a step forward. His figure immediately turned into a stream of light and rushed toward Murong Yu. "Die, you little bastard!" The young man sneered and threw a punch at Murong Yu. However, the smile on his face soon froze. At the same time, everyone saw that his cultivation level had dropped rapidly, and he was now exactly the same as Murong Yu. Third level Chaotic Void Realm. Ha! Murong Yu laughed heartily. He took a step forward and pounced forward. What followed was a series of brutal killings. In the end, this bright world boundary ancestor died in Murong Yu's hands, just like the bright world boundary ancestor before him. Who else? After killing 2 people in a row, Murong Yu was in high spirits. Just as he was about to kill the 3rd bright world boundary ancestor to scare these ancestors, he found that there was no one around. Everyone, including the bright world boundary ancestor and the chaotic void realm cultivators, had run away. These people were afraid of Murong Yu and were afraid that Murong Yu would choose them in the next moment. Under the suppression of the demoness, wouldn't they be killed by Murong Yu in the same realm? Cowardly rats. Murong Yu sneered and then quickly returned to the demoness side. At this moment, the team set off again. Demoness, what are those half-step blessed realm patriarchs doing? Why haven't they set off yet? Murong Yu asked, puzzled. Since the demoness had sensed the aura of the heavens' Inquisition divine vine, those ancestors must have felt the same. Under the temptation of such a precious treasure, the ancestors were still stagnant. How could they resist such a huge temptation? The Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine is the most precious treasure in the Sky Martial world. There must be a terrifying, ferocious beast guarding it. They must be thinking about how to deal with the ferocious beast guarding it or how to divide the spoils. The demoness sneered. Murong Yu nodded and quickly followed the majority. Strangely, they didn't encounter any ferocious beasts along the way. They didn't even encounter low-level ferocious beasts. Therefore, the group rushed directly to the deepest part of the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. At this moment, even the weakest rebirth realm expert smelled a faint fragrance. Under the influence of this fragrance, some people suddenly had some epiphany. Even those who didn't have an epiphany felt that their comprehension had increased a little. The Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine had 2 main functions. One was to increase comprehension. The other was to directly increase the chances of a half-step creation realm expert breaking through by 30%. Whether it was to increase comprehension or the chances of breaking through, it was very precious. The demonic woman and the other patriarchs all had excited looks on their faces. To them, the Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine was the creation realm. As long as they devoured the Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine, they would definitely break through to the creation realm. Only Murong Yu was disdainful. Comprehension? He never lacked comprehension. While he was cultivating the 9 syllables mantra, his comprehension was constantly increasing. Therefore, Murong Yu's comprehension was far superior to those in the same realm. As for increasing the chances of breaking through, this was even more useless to Murong Yu, because as long as he accumulated enough strength, he could break through. All he needed was power. Of course, Murong Yu didn't need it, but it didn't mean that Zhao Jiqing and the rest didn't need it. However, Murong Yu didn't intend to take the Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine. Zhao Jiqing and the rest were still relatively weak. Even if they had the Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine, they couldn't use it by the time they needed it. Murong Yu's strength would have reached the creation realm or even higher. By then, wouldn't it be easy for him to get the Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine or other heavenly treasures or elixirs with similar effects? However, Murong Yu hadn't seen the Heavens Inquisition Divine Vine yet. At that moment, he only saw a gigantic metal divine ape that was like a small mountain. An extremely terrifying aura erupted from its body. It was the same as that of the Demonis and the six ancestors of the six forces, or even stronger. It was a half-step to the creation realm metal divine ape. Its strength could only be considered average. Even if there weren't 10 ancestors of the half-step to the creation realm present, there were about 10 of them. At the very least, they were on par with the metal divine ape. In fact, the metal divine ape was no match for them at all. However, the reason why the metal divine ape was called that was because its entire body was made of extremely hard metal. It flickered with a dazzling golden light. Even more so, although it was obscure, an extremely powerful aura continuously emanated from its body, intimidating the heavens and the earth. This is the aura of a creation realm origin artifact. Murong couldn't help but exclaim. His face was filled with shock. Murong is no stranger to creation realm origin artifacts. Those ancestors had previously used origin artifacts of this level. They were extremely powerful and could kill anything in their path. Moreover, Murong himself had a creation realm origin artifact. Although the metal divine ape was only half-step to the creation realm, its physical body was already equivalent to that of the creation realm. Once it swallowed the heavens Inquisition divine vine, it would also step into the creation realm. By then, it would definitely be the strongest creation realm in the Tianwu world. It would definitely be able to sweep through the entire Tianwu world, and no one would be its match. The six ancestors' faces were ugly. It was obvious that they had also realized this fact. So what if they had creation realm origin artifacts? Facing the powerful metal divine ape, they weren't confident that they could win. However, they had an advantage now. There were many more people than the metal divine ape. Not counting the chaotic realm and rebirth realm cultivators, there were also many bright world realm experts. If they worked together, they might be able to kill the metal divine ape. The six ancestors met to discuss for a while. Then, Murong saw a person quickly walking over. It was actually to invite the demonic woman over. Although the demonic woman had hidden her figure and even changed her appearance slightly, those ancestors were not stupid. However, those ancestors were not fools. How could they not discover her true identity? However, their target was the Heavens Inquisition divine vine, and they didn't care about the demonic woman. The demonic woman was obviously willing to cooperate with the six ancestors. Hence, she walked over happily. Although the demonic woman had left, Murong was alone. No one dared to attack him. The demonic woman's power was still there. Moreover, she hadn't left. If they dared to attack Murong, weren't they afraid that the demonic woman would slap them to death? Boom! Not long after the demonic woman went over, a great battle broke out. It was a great battle between many cultivators and the metal divine ape. After an earth-shattering explosion, a terrifying shockwave swept out in all directions like raging waves. Bang! 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 Originally, the crowd had already left the battlefield far away, but they were still swept by the shock waves. Instantly, countless people were sent flying. Some of the unlucky ones were even directly shattered, turning into clouds of blood mist that exploded in the void. The crowd was shocked and could only retreat again and again. In the end, they retreated a few trillion miles before they could stand still. However, even then, they could still feel the terrifying shock waves that kept coming at them. The ancestors of the six great forces and the demonic woman had a total of 7 half-step to creation realm experts. Apart from them, there were more than 10 peak bright world realm experts in Tianwu world who were infinitely close to half-step to creation realm experts. More than 20 ancestors surrounded the metal divine ape in a frenzy. However, the metal divine ape roared angrily. Its body shone with golden light, and it exploded with terrifying power. It fought with the ancestors loudly and was on par with them. In fact, the metal divine ape even had the upper hand. Wherever it passed, not a single blade of grass grew. Even the half-step to creation realm ancestors had to retreat and didn't dare to fight it head-on. The opponent's physical body had reached the creation realm. If they were hit by the metal divine ape, their physical bodies would be smashed into pieces. Moreover, the attacks of the ancestors landed on the metal divine ape, but it was like an itch and didn't matter at all. Only a similar origin tool of the creation realm would be able to cause such a small wound. Chapter 1887. The injuries caused by the creation realm origin weapons were nothing to the metal divine ape. However, as time passed, these injuries would become bone-deep and terrifying injuries. Therefore, the patriarchs continued to attack relentlessly. Even though Murong could not cause any harm to it, he continued to attack it crazily. The laws of space and time were constantly attacked. However, nature was equal. The metal divine ape also knew the laws of space and time. Moreover, in the golden embryo secret realm, the power of the metal divine ape's laws of space and time seemed to have been strengthened. On the other hand, the patriarch's powers of time and space seemed to be suppressed. This must be the invisible suppression of the golden embryo secret realm. It suppressed the laws of space and time. Murong tried and realized that his laws of space and time were not affected at all. It must be because the laws were more powerful than the laws. The golden embryo secret realm could only suppress the laws of space and not the laws. I wonder how the Heaven's Inquisition Vine is doing. Murong thought to himself. Then, he disappeared from the spot. He had entered the Hichu Luo Shu. Why did he suddenly disappear? No one dared to attack Murong anymore. However, there were people who kept an eye on Murong. Once the demonic woman left or was killed by the metal divine ape, they would definitely attack Murong immediately. Therefore, they kept an eye on Murong. However, Murong disappeared into thin air. This made them very depressed. Moreover, because Murong was mixed in with the crowd, they could not find any trace of Murong at all. Otherwise, with their mastery of the laws of space and time, they could still find some traces. After entering the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong controlled the Hichu Luo Shu and slowly left the crowd. Then, he slowly shot toward the place behind the metal divine ape. The reason why he entered Hichu Luo Shu was because Murong was worried that his tracks would be discovered. Therefore, he only came out of Hichu Luo Shu after he was far away from the crowd. Stealth. Continue forward. Murong did not dare to advance directly from the front. The aftermath of the battle between the many half-step blessed realm patriarchs was too terrifying, and Murong simply could not withstand it. If he went over directly like that, it was very likely that he would be killed. Therefore, Murong took a huge detour to the side, far away from the attack range of the many great ancestors. Only then did he turn invisible and shoot over. In reality, Murong discovered that there were many people who had the same thoughts as him. Along the way, Murong saw no less than a few hundred experts rapidly sneaking over. However, these people were trying their best to hide their figures. However, they didn't know how to conceal themselves at all, so they could be seen at a glance. Naturally, Murong did not expose them. Instead, he followed behind them and quickly sneaked over. Soon, they arrived at the back of the battle. This place could already be covered by the divine thought of the metal divine ape or other blessed realm patriarchs. Therefore, those patriarchs must have discovered the existence of these people. However, the metal divine ape did not seem to have discovered anything and did not even look at them. However, those patriarchs were furious. They were fighting to the death in front of them. If these people stole the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine, they would be furious. Therefore, some of the patriarchs freed up their hands and wanted to kill these people with a slap. However, before they could do anything, there was a sudden change behind them. Murong, who was moving stealthily, suddenly felt a sense of danger. Immediately, he rushed into Hichu Luo Shu without hesitation. The moment he entered the Hitu and the Luo Shu, countless green vines appeared out of thin air, covering the entire sky in an instant. Then, these vines shot down at an extremely fast speed. They directly wrapped around the cultivators who were sneaking over. The cultivators were startled by this sudden change. However, which one of them who dared to come here was a fool? Therefore, these people quickly reacted. rumble, an incomparably terrifying power erupted from their bodies. Wherever the power passed, the vines were quickly shattered. However, after the vines were crushed, they quickly grew back and swept toward those cultivators again. Those cultivators were furious. Their bodies were shrouded in extremely terrifying power as they flew forward. Although there were many vines, they couldn't stop their footsteps. However, Moronyu did not come out of Hichu Luo's shoe. This was because the warning in his heart did not disappear. On the contrary, it became more and more intense. He knew that these vines were not as simple as they seemed. As expected, vines that were as thick as an arm appeared out of nowhere. It should be known that the vines that appeared earlier were only the size of a pinky finger. The vines that appeared now were more than 10 times larger than the ones before. However, it was obviously more than 10 times larger. The power that the cultivators released could no longer shatter the vines. Soon, one of the vines wrapped around a cultivator. Bang! With a muffled sound, the cultivator who was wrapped up exploded, turning into a cloud of blood mist. The vines around this cloud of blood mist trembled slightly, and the blood mist quickly entered the vines. It was actually swallowed. These vines that were as thick as an arm were extremely terrifying. In less than 15 minutes, the battle had ended and all the invaders were killed. As for the dead cultivators, they were all devoured by the vines. Only Moronyu, who was hiding in Hichu Luo's shoe, was safe. Swish! After there were no more invaders, the vines quickly retracted. Morongyu's heart suddenly moved. He immediately controlled Hichu Luo's shoe and stuck it to one of the retracted vines. Seeing this scene, the people who originally wanted to sneak overstopped in their tracks. One had to know that there were even high-level Bright World Realm cultivators who had been killed by the vines. If even such a powerful cultivator couldn't escape, what was the difference between going up and seeking death? Seeing this scene, the half-step ancestors finally relaxed and started fighting the metal ape. As long as they killed the metal ape, they would be able to deal with a mere vine. This is Moronyu, who was in Hichu Luo's shoe, was shocked. At this moment, the vines that originally covered the sky and covered the earth had completely retracted. However, what shocked Moronyu the most was that there was only a single vine. It was about the size of a palm and had 2 or 3 vines. The strangest thing was that the leaves of this plant looked like ghost faces. If Moronyu hadn't seen the vine shrink with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that this ordinary plant in front of him could erupt with such terrifying power. Moreover, Moronyu discovered that after devouring the blood essence of those cultivators, this vine seemed to be growing, and its aura was much stronger than before. This vine seemed to be able to cultivate, or could evolve. At this moment, its aura was clearly not at the high-level Bright World Realm, but the power it erupted with was not even a high-level Bright World Realm cultivator's match. I wonder if this plant can be transplanted? If it could, wouldn't he have another powerful trump card by his side in the future? However, how could he collect this plant? Moronyu would probably be killed the moment he appeared. This is the demonic vine. At this moment, Hichu's excited voice sounded in Moronyu's ears. Moronyu was stunned. Ever since Moronyu entered the rebirth realm, Hichu seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Although Moronyu could still use the Hichu Luo shoe, the artifact spirit didn't have any reaction. Why did he suddenly speak? I am a number 1 book born in the universe. Would I not know? During this period of deep sleep, it was because I suddenly obtained a huge amount of memories and needed to sleep to digest them. In the memories, there is this demonic vine. The demonic vine is a type of plant, but it's not a demonic beast. Although it can evolve, it can't transform. However, the memories regarding the demonic vine are a bit blurry. Perhaps it's because it's too high level. However, this demonic vine will definitely surpass the creation realm after it grows, Hichu said excitedly. After entering the endless starry sky, Moronyu had fewer and fewer trump cards by his side. His previous trump cards didn't have much power. If he could subdue this demonic vine, Moronyu's strength would skyrocket. How do I subdue it? Moronyu hurriedly asked. He was also interested in this demonic vine. It's very simple. You just need to feed it with your blood. However, this demonic vine has already reached the bright world realm. It's difficult to feed it, Hichu said with a sigh. A month's worth of blood was ultimately limited. Murong Yu was only at level 3 chaotic space realm. The power contained in his blood was definitely far inferior to that of a bright world realm expert. Therefore, it was even more difficult for him to feed the demonic vine. However, no matter how difficult it was, he had to subdue it. Murong Yu gritted his teeth. I have the tree of life. It shouldn't suck my blood dry. As he spoke, Murong Yu had already cut his wrist. A stream of blood containing a huge amount of power shot out. Under Murong Yu's control, the Hichu Luoshu opened a small mouth. Then, the blood shot to the front of the demonic vine. Smelling the scent of blood, the demonic vine trembled excitedly. Immediately, he extended a vine into the blood. Then, the blood disappeared with a swoosh. It was completely devoured by the demonic vine. With a thought, Murong Yu continuously shot out an endless stream of aura from his wrist. It was crazily devoured by the demonic vine. Soon, all the blood in Murong Yu's body was close to drying up. However, the tree of life began to wildly erupt with waves of life power, washing over Murong Yu's body. An endless stream of blood was produced by the tree of life. Chapter 1888. Soon, Murong Yu's face turned pale. This was because he had lost too much blood. After all, although the Tree of Life's recovery ability was terrifying, its ability to create fresh blood was also terrifying. However, the speed at which the demonic vine devoured blood was not slow either. Usually, the moment the Tree of Life created fresh blood, the fresh blood would be devoured by the demonic vine. The fresh blood created by the Tree of Life was just a formality in Murong Yu's body. Basically, Murong Yu was still in a state of insufficient qi and blood. However, that was all. It did not affect Murong Yu much. As the demonic vine devoured Murong Yu's fresh blood, the leaves on the demonic vine trembled excitedly, as if it was very happy. However, the demonic vine was a special life form. It could not transform, and it could not even communicate with its divine consciousness. However, the demonic vine was excited. However, Murong Yu was having a hard time. That was because the demonic vine's devouring ability became even faster after it became excited. At that moment, Murong Yu's face was pale and bloodless. He was like a legendary ghost. While Murong Yu was feeding the demonic vine with his fresh blood, the battle ahead was still ongoing. Moreover, the power of the battle was becoming more and more terrifying. It shook the ground until it was constantly exploding. Fortunately, the void in the endless starry sky was relatively sturdy and was not destroyed by them. However, the impact of their power also caused ripples to appear on the surface. It was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, after the power exploded, some planets in the sky that passed by were directly destroyed. A chaotic realm expert could already pluck a planet with his hand, let alone a half-step to creation realm expert. An expert of this level only needed to point a finger to destroy an ordinary planet. Of course, an origin star was still not enough. After all, an origin star was too big. Even a creation realm expert could not easily destroy an origin star. However, if a large number of experts were to fight, it would be better. Just like the water cloud planet. When a group of chaotic realm experts fought, the water cloud planet had almost been destroyed. The battle had entered a white-hot state. Those cultivators who originally wanted to sneak over no longer snuck over after witnessing the terrifying power of the demonic vine. This gave Murong Yu a chance to bleed in peace. Half a day later, the demonic vine was still crazily devouring Murong Yu's blood, showing no signs of stopping. However, a smile gradually appeared on Murong Yu's face. In the beginning, the devil's vines had happily devoured his blood. However, that was all there was to it. The demonic vine did not change at all. However, things are different now. After devouring a large amount of Murong Yu's blood, Murong Yu could vaguely sense a subtle connection between him and the devil's vine. It was a relationship where blood was thicker than water. The devil's vine was like a part of Murong Yu's body. However, this feeling was very weak. It was faintly discernible and could be cut off at any time. Murong Yu knew that as long as the connection between him and the devil's vine was strong enough, the devil's vine would be like a part of his body, which would mean that he had subdued it. However, it was clearly not possible now. He needed to work even harder. Another day passed. The battle in front was still ongoing. It was so intense that the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Dozens of ancestors were attacking the metal god Ape crazily. During this process, although Murong Yu could not see the scenes of the battle, he could occasionally hear an extremely shrill scream. That was the roar of an ancestor at the peak of the Bright World realm who had died. However, the half-step to the manifestation realm powerhouses of the six great forces and the Demonis should be fine. During this process, there were also people who wanted to sneak over and steal the heavens questioning divine vine. However, the devil's vine once again showed its prowess and turned them all into its nourishment. Moreover, Murong Yu also realized that the devil's vine seemed to be more powerful than before after devouring a large amount of his blood. The devil's vine was evolving. Although the evolution was not very obvious, it had evolved and become more powerful. Moreover, although the connection with Murong Yu was still rather weak, he could clearly feel it. It would not stop halfway. In fact, Murong Yu could even affect the devil's vine. This increased Murong Yu's confidence even more. 3 days later, the relationship between the devil's vine and Murong Yu had become even closer. However, he still had not reached the point where he could subdue it. Roar! Suddenly, following a shocking roar, Murong Yu clearly saw the incomparably firm space of the Tianwu world shatter with a bang. Murong Yu was caught off guard as an incomparably frightening force ruthlessly slammed into the He-Tu and Luo Shu. Crack! Naturally, the He-Tu Luo Shu was not damaged. However, it was only a chaotic space realm Yuan artifact now. It only offset a portion of the impact. The rest of the impact was turned into overflowing damage that directly affected Murong Yu's body. A crisp sound rang out as all the bones in Murong Yu's body were instantly shattered. Following that, his entire body exploded with a PU sound. Bang! At the same time that Murong Yu was shattered, the devil's vine that was originally happily devouring Murong Yu's blood instantly exploded. In the blink of an eye, the palm-sized devil vine began to grow at a crazy rate. The vines that were the size of an adult's thigh grew crazily forward. Whoosh! 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 As if someone was controlling it, the devil's vine slashed through the void and ruthlessly slashed down. At the same time that the devil's vine slashed down crazily, there were dozens of flowing lights that were rapidly charging forward. However, after being attacked by the devil's vine, they all stopped. Then, one of them exploded with terrifying power, directly attacking the vines that were rushing over. A great battle was about to erupt. The power of the person who had come was extremely terrifying. After the power exploded, the devil's vine was directly shattered. However, the devil's vine had an extremely terrifying recovery ability. After those vines were shattered, even more vines slashed through the void like Yuan artifacts and crazily attacked. In fact, the surrounding void was filled with furious roars. The devil's vine was furious. In the He-Tu Luo Shu, Murong Yu's body shook, and he had already recovered his physical body. However, his face was a little pale. Although the devil's vine had acted in time and blocked many of the aftershocks of the power, his soul was still severely injured. If the devil's vine hadn't acted in time, Murong Yu's soul would have been shattered into pieces. At that time, he could only die. Of course, Murong Yu still had the chance to use the nirvana of the phoenix. However, those chances were too precious, and Murong Yu didn't want to waste them here. The metallic ape was killed by them. Murong Yu's face was a little gloomy, and his eyes flashed with cold light. The terrifying aftershocks of the power just now were obviously the aftershocks of the metallic ape being killed. Moreover, the demonic woman and the rest had already charged over, but the metallic ape was nowhere to be seen. It was obvious that the metallic ape had been killed. In another day's time, I can completely subdue the devil's vine. Damn it! Morong cursed in his heart. With a thought, the Hichu Luoshu opened up a small opening again. The wrist was separated by Morong again, and fresh blood spurted out like a fountain. Seeing the fresh blood, the devil's vine trembled in excitement and started to devour it. At this moment, Morong felt a sense of closeness from the devil's vine. The devil's vine was also angry. However, the target of its anger wasn't him, but the ancestors. My connection with the devil's vine has also strengthened. Now, I only need half a day to subdue the devil's vine. Morong was delighted. Could it be that the appearance of the ancestors interrupted the devil's vine's devouring? Morong thought his heart as fresh blood spurted out continuously. The ancestors, and even the demonic woman, didn't recognize the devil's vine. However, the devil's vine was the last obstacle that stopped them from getting the heavens questioning divine vine. Therefore, they had to kill the devil's vine. Although the devil's vine was infinitely close to the advanced Bright World realm and had the strength of a peak Bright World realm expert, its opponents were ancestors who were half a step to the creation realm. Moreover, there were 5 ancestors who were holding creation realm origin weapons. These creation realm origin weapons were extremely damaging to the devil's vine. With a slash of the blade, a large area of the devil's vine was chopped into pieces, although more devil's vines grew out after a short while. However, Morong realized that every time the devil's vine lost a vine, its aura would weaken a little. Although it was insignificant, a large number of devil's vines would be shattered in an instant. The change in quantity led to a change in quality. Soon, the devil's vine's aura weakened a little. If this continued, the devil's vine would be killed by the ancestors before it could submit to Morong. These bastards! Morong gritted his teeth. If he was strong enough, he would definitely kill these so-called ancestors without hesitation. However, he didn't even have the strength now. Demonis! Morong had a thought and rushed out of the Hichu Luoshu as he roared at the same time. The Demonis was rapidly cutting down the devil's vine. However, when she saw Morong, she stopped attacking and even retreated quickly. Brat, give me the heavens questioning divine vine. Morong didn't care if the devil's vine could understand him. He shouted at it. Morong had come up with this name in a hurry. Whoosh! The devil's vine seemed to be connected to his mind. Before Morong could finish speaking, the devil's vine wrapped around an ordinary-looking vine and appeared beside Morong. Give it to the Demonis. Morong pointed at the Demonis and shouted. Then, the devil's vine wrapped around the heavens questioning divine vine and handed it to the Demonis. The heavens questioning divine vine. The Demonis and the other half-step to creation realm ancestors exclaimed. The 6 ancestors exploded with terrifying power and grabbed at the heavens questioning divine vine. However, they were fast, but the Demonis was faster. With a whoosh, the Demonis grabbed the heavens questioning divine vine. Then, she tore a spatial crack in front of her with both hands and entered it. Brat, remember to come and find me. After leaving this sentence, the Demonis disappeared without a trace. The spatial crack that she tore was quickly healing. The old ancestors fiercely glared at Morong, then rushed into the spatial crack that was about to close up to chase after the demonic woman. Although they wanted to kill Morong with a slap, they didn't have the time for that at the moment. However, they hated Morong to the core. Chapter 1889. The 6 half-step to creation realm ancestors left, and so did the rest of the peak Bright World realm ancestors. They hated Morong to the core and wished they could kill Morong with one slap. However, they all knew what the heavens questioning divine vine meant to them. It meant that they could break through to the creation realm. That was the creation realm. Although the heaven-earth essence chi in the Tianwu world was not enough to support the emergence of a terrifying creation realm expert. However, if they obtained the heavens questioning divine vine, they only needed to cultivate on a higher level origin planet for a while before they could break through. Without the heavens questioning divine vine, the half-step to creation realm ancestors knew that the half-step to creation realm would be their final destination. They would not be able to achieve anything greater in their lifetime. Murong-Yu's actions were undoubtedly the same as personally burying the ancestors' achievements. Therefore, how could they not hate Murong-Yu? How could they not chase after the Demonis? Murong-Yu heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the unstoppable ancestors leaving quickly. The ancestors gave him too much pressure. Even with the demonic vine, he was still no match for them. The difference was too great. However, it was fortunate that they all left. However, before Murong-Yu could relax, an extremely cold voice was heard. It made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. "Kill that brat for me." A cold voice that was filled with incomparable hatred came over. Then, Murong-Yu saw a large group of experts charging towards him. There were many bright world realm experts among them. Murong-Yu was only a level 3 chaotic space realm expert. How could he be a match for the bright world realm ancestors? Therefore, his face turned green when he saw this scene. In fact, if he wanted to escape, he could enter the Hichu Luo Shu and teleport away. However, if he did that, he would have to give up on subduing the demonic vine. He had to subdue the demonic vine. Moreover, would he be able to subdue the demonic vine after he left? This was an unknown. Moreover, he could feel that if the demonic vine grew up, it would be extremely terrifying and would be of great help to him. "Brat, it's all up to you now. Exterminate all of these people and turn them into your nutrients," Murong-Yu said in a low voice as he looked at the devil's vine that was becoming closer and closer to him. The devil's vine seemed to understand Murong-Yu's words, and a few of its leaves shook slightly. At the same time, the hundreds of millions of vines that had yet to be retracted scattered out once again. Heaven and earth crumbled as they shot toward the person who had just arrived. "Kill!" The powerhouses roared furiously as they unleashed their strongest attacks at the demonic vine. Although the devil's vine was extremely powerful, many people were frightened by its power. But now that they had so many cultivators, even if each of them spit a mouthful of saliva, they would be able to drown the demonic vine. Of course, this was only what they thought. Bang, bang, bang. A series of muffled sounds rang out continuously. Every time a muffled sound rang out, it was accompanied by a cloud of blood mist that soared into the sky. It was because the cultivator had been killed. After these cultivators were killed, their blood essence was quickly absorbed by the devil's vine. After absorbing a lot of blood essence, Murong-Yu realized that the devil's vine, which was originally weak, was slowly recovering. Obviously, the blood essence of cultivators was a great supplement for the devil's vine. As more and more cultivators were killed, Murong-Yu could even feel a strong, bloodthirsty aura from the devil's vine. Murong-Yu felt a chill in his heart. If the devil's vine was allowed to continue growing, it would definitely grow into a bloodthirsty homicidal maniac. However, Murong-Yu was confident that as long as he subdued the devil's vine, it would definitely not turn into a homicidal maniac. Moreover, he could guarantee that the devil's vine would follow him, which was much better than being alone here. One cultivator after another was killed, and Murong-Yu's blood was continuously devoured by the devil's vine. Although the feeling of blood being thicker than water was getting stronger, the devil's vine was still not subdued by Murong-Yu. In the end, something was still missing. There were many times when Murong-Yu seemed to clearly know what he was missing, but he just could not grasp it. As for Hichu, Murong-Yu asked. However, Hichu did not have a deep memory of this. He only knew that he had to use blood to subdue the devil's vine, but he did not know how to do it. The devil's vine was already infinitely close to the high-level Bright World Realm, and the power it unleashed was comparable to that of a peak Bright World Realm powerhouse. Therefore, under its rampage, countless cultivators were killed. After seeing the bloody truth, the people who were yelling for Murong-Yu's death all stopped in their tracks in horror. They didn't dare to take another step into the lightning pool. This was the case even for those Bright World Realm experts. However, they did not leave. Although the devil's vine was terrifying, it was still not a match for their patriarch. And Murong-Yu had ruined their patriarch's plan. So he had to die. Although the patriarch had ordered them to kill Murong-yu, and they could not, they could trap Murong-yu. Everyone, let's work together to set up a restriction. Although we can't kill him, he can't escape from here. Once the patriarch returns, it will be his death. A bright world realm powerhouse said coldly. The others nodded in agreement. Therefore, the powerhouses worked together and started to set up restrictions around the Devil's Vine to prevent Murong-yu from leaving. In response, Murong-yu only sneered in disdain. Not to mention that he had the Hichu Luoshu. These restrictions could not trap him at all, unless they sealed the void and prevented him from entering the Hichu Luoshu. Even so, they could not trap Murong-yu. In the world, there was no restriction or formation that could trap Murong-yu. That brat seems to want to subdue that plant. Let's attack from afar. We must not let him succeed. While setting up the restriction, a bright world realm powerhouse shouted angrily. The others suddenly realized they were really stupid. As bright world realm and chaotic space realm powerhouses, when did they need to attack at close range to kill? They could totally attack from afar. Moreover, the coverage of the Devil's Vine was limited. As long as they stood at a safe distance, they could injure the Devil's Vine, but the Devil's Vine would not be able to touch them. As a result, they retreated one after another and sent out terrifying attacks at Murong-yu and the demonic vine. Apart from the 6 major forces, everyone else did the same. Perhaps they did not have any enmity with Murong-yu. In fact, some forces were even grateful to Murong-yu for taking away the Heaven's Inquisition divine vine. That was because the 6 major forces ruled the Heaven's martial world, and the forces had reached a state of balance. This was considered good for the entire Heaven's martial world. However, if one of the family's ancestors successfully broke through to the creation realm, then the Heaven's martial world would live under that person's tyranny. The 6 major forces working together to keep each other in check was much better than a single family ruling. However, anyone with discerning eyes could see that the Devil's Vine was an absolute treasure. If it was subdued by Murong-yu, then wouldn't Murong-yu have another fighter that could display the strength of a peak Bright World Realm powerhouse? This was something that they could not allow to happen. Furthermore, they all wanted to subdue the Devil's Vine. Therefore, everyone's attacks were madly aimed at Murong-yu. Murong-yu's face turned green. He could only order the Devil's Vine to withdraw. Even so, those people did not dare to take half a step forward. However, the majority of their attacks were still aimed at Murong-yu. This made Murong-yu gnash his teeth. If it was not for his lack of strength, he would have already killed them all. In the end, Murong-yu could only order the Devil's Vine to only destroy the attacks that reached the vicinity. However, because of this, the Devil's Vine's speed of absorbing blood slowed down. Originally, it only needed 1 day to absorb all the blood, but in the end, it was delayed by 3 days. However, the Devil's Vine was too powerful. Those experts' attacks were unable to cause much damage to it. Therefore, within 3 days, Murong-yu was not attacked. However, Murong-yu was now depressed, because he realized that the Devil's Vine had already stopped absorbing blood. It was as if the Devil's Vine was already full. The Devil's Vine was indeed full. Furthermore, the connection between it and Murong-yu was as close as a piece of meat on his body. He could order the Devil's Vine to attack or stop attacking. However, in the end, it was still lacking something for the Devil's Vine to recognize a master. The Devil's Vine can only be subdued by absorbing blood. Now, it has already absorbed enough blood. However, Murong-yu muttered to himself. However, at this moment, a look of shock suddenly appeared on his face. This was because at this moment, several extremely terrifying auras shot back from afar at an extremely fast speed. 6 extremely terrifying auras. These are the terrifying auras of 6 half-step creation realm ancestors. Murong-yu had already seen them before. Therefore, he was able to determine who they were immediately. They were the ancestors of the 6 great clans. They had returned so quickly. Had the demonists escaped? Or had she been killed by them? Oh no, won't I be finished when they return? Murong-yu's expression changed drastically. With a thought, he was about to enter the Hichu Luoshu. He had to leave immediately. Otherwise, he would not even have the chance to escape when those ancestors returned. However, the moment he entered the Hichu Luo Shu, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Murong Yu did not hesitate. A drop of blood essence shot out from his fingertip. The devil's vine seemed to be cheering. Its leaves and branches swayed happily. One of the vines directly wrapped around Murong Yu's drop of blood essence. "Die, you little bastard!" At the same time, a furious roar was heard. Then, everyone saw a terrifying palm covering the sky and earth. It carried a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth as it slammed down on Murong Yu. Murong Yu's heart sank. An extremely strong aura of death instantly enveloped his heart. Chapter 1890. This was the full-powered attack of a half-step to Creation Realm Patriarch. Murong Yu's heart was instantly enveloped by an intense aura of death. Murong Yu was only at level 3 Chaotic Void Realm. He could not even withstand the attack of an ordinary Bright World Realm expert, let alone a half-step to Creation Realm expert. Rumble, the half-step to Creation Realm Patriarch's huge hand slapped down in front of everyone's shocked expressions after a series of earth-shattering explosions. The place where the demonic vine was flattened by the terrifying power. After a long time, the demonic vine was nowhere to be seen. Where was Murong Yu? The place where the demonic vine was originally had become a huge pit. This was the Golden Embryo Secret Realm, and the ground was extremely hard. An ordinary Bright World Realm expert could not even destroy the ground here. One could imagine how furious the Patriarch was. Swoosh! Just as the area where the demonic vine had been was leveled, 6 figures appeared in front of the crowd. However, looking at the flattened ground, the 6 half-step to Creation Realm Patriarch's faces were extremely gloomy. The Golden Embryo Secret Realm was the most terrifying place in the Tianwu world. Usually, no one dared to enter this place, so not many people knew about it. However, the patriarchs of the 6 forces knew about the existence of the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine. Moreover, they knew that other than the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine, there was also the Demonic Vine. They had to get the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine. The Demonic Vine was also something they had to get. However, they did not get anything at all. That brat escaped. Tian Hai's face was extremely gloomy. He was the one who had attacked just now. Although his strength was terrifying and could even shatter the sky, he did not know that Murong Yu was still alive. Even so, he knew that Murong Yu was not killed. Even the demonic vine had disappeared. It was obvious that the brat had already subdued the demonic vine. To them, the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Vine was something they had to obtain because it could allow them to break through to the creation realm. However, the demonic vine was not weak either. If it grew up, it would not be a problem for it to reach the creation realm. As long as they subdued the demonic vine, it was equivalent to having a creation realm fighter. Seal the Golden Embryo Secret Realm and arrest that bastard in the Tianwu world. At the same time, seal off all the teleportation formations to other planets. An old ancestor from Mystic Island said murderously. Compared to the Demonis, they hated Murong Yu even more. This was because both the Heaven's Inquisition God Vine and the Devil's Vine had been snatched away by Murong Yu, and they were just making a wedding dress for someone else. That bastard better not fall in my hands, or I'll make him wish he was dead. The half-step Blessed Realm Patriarch of the Bipolar Sect said coldly. The same was true for the other 4 patriarchs. However, they did not leave immediately. Instead, they unleashed their terrifying divine senses and began to search the surroundings. However, there was no trace of Murong Yu. Even if this kid uses a teleportation talisman, he won't be able to escape from the Golden Embryo Secret Realm. As long as we guard the exit, he won't be able to escape. Divine Sect's half-step to Creation Realm Ancestor murderously said. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared from where he stood. The other patriarchs also disappeared one after another. As for the remaining cultivators, they wouldn't care at all. In fact, with the strength of the 6 great ancestors, they could have swept all the way here. They did not need those cannon fodder at all. Those cultivators were actually prepared by the patriarchs to feed the devil vines. They all knew that fresh blood was needed to collect the devil vines, so they let the weaker cultivators in. However, Muronyu had already subdued the devil vines. Thus, those cultivators were no longer of any use. These bastards better not let me catch up to them. Once I have enough strength, I will exterminate all of you. In the Hichu Luo Shu, the pale-faced Muronyu said while gnashing his teeth. Although Muronyu had successfully escaped from Tianhai's palm just now, he had still managed to escape. However, he was almost slapped to death. His physical body was directly destroyed, and his soul was severely injured once again. If he wasn't a soul cultivator, his soul would have been annihilated long ago. Fortunately, we have little ghost. Muronyu glanced at the listless devil vines in his hands. Its vines and leaves were shattered. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. Originally, with his strength, even if he hid in the Hichu Luo Shu, he would have been directly killed by the overflowing damage. However, when Tianhai's palm slapped down, the devil vines had coincidentally swallowed a drop of his blood essence. After swallowing Murongyu's blood essence, the devil vines had immediately connected with Murongyu's mind. They had already recognized Murongyu as their master. After recognizing Murongyu as their master, the devil vines naturally would not allow their master, Murongyu, to be harmed. Thus, it unleashed its strongest strength to block Tianhai's attack. However, although the devil vines could unleash the strength of a peak bright world realm cultivator, it was still far from a half step to the manifestation realm. It could not block Tianhai's attack at all. However, the devil vines would not watch Murongyu be killed without doing anything. Thus, it directly burned its life force and potential. In the end, the devil vines barely blocked Tianhai's attack. However, it was also severely injured. In fact, if the devil vines had only been injured, Murongyu would not have been so furious. That was because he had the Tree of Life. Under the frenzied scouring of the Tree of Life's life force, no matter how severe the injuries were, he would be fine. However, the devil vines had burned its life force and potential. Thus, after blocking Tianhai's attack, the devil vine's cultivation level was forcefully reduced to the first level of the chaotic space realm. Moreover, its potential was also greatly affected. Injuries and cultivation level could be recovered, but potential was not. Perhaps the devil vines could have originally grown to a level beyond the manifestation realm. However, after burning its strength, it could only grow to the manifestation realm. Thus, Murongyu was furious. Perhaps it had sensed Murongyu's anger, but the devil vines and leaves trembled slightly. Then, they turned into a stream of light and entered Murongyu's forearm. The next moment, a devil vine's tattoo appeared on Murongyu's forearm. The devil vines had already settled down on Murongyu's forearm. Murongyu could even sense that the devil vines had already fallen into a deep sleep. It was about to recover its injuries and strength. Murongyu used his hand to caress the tattoo that the devil vines had turned into, and his expression became even colder. Little brat, don't worry. I will definitely let you recover to your peak. I will also let you surpass everything and have unparalleled achievements. After all, the devil vines had saved Murongyu's life. It was equivalent to Murongyu's savior. Thus, Murongyu would definitely not ignore it. In the following period of time, Murongyu did not leave Hichu Luo Shu. Instead, he began to cultivate. His physical injuries recovered very quickly, and he reached his peak in one fell swoop. However, the injuries to his soul did not recover that quickly. Now, Murongyu's soul was still at the level of 9 stars, which was equivalent to a sector lord. It could not keep up with his cultivation level. However, although cultivating the Zhe word could strengthen his soul, the progress was very slow. In fact, this should be the normal speed of cultivation. Murongyu's cultivation level was only because he could devour any energy, which made it seem very monstrous and abnormal. Other than that, Murongyu's physical body had become extremely weak. It was far from his current level. Originally, Murongyu's cultivation, soul, and physical body were the 3 of 1, and they cultivated together. However, his soul and physical body could no longer keep up. His soul was still slowly recovering, but Muronyu had already come out of Hichu Luo's shoe. He kept all the fragments of the metal godly ape after it was destroyed. This metal was like a physical body. To others, it could not be eaten or refined. However, Muronyu could refine it and devour the energy contained within. After refining these fragments, Muronyu did not use these energy to raise his cultivation level, but used it to raise his physical body. Muronyu felt that only by cultivating his soul, cultivation, and physical body to the great success stage would he be the strongest. He could even feel that only by doing so could he become a primal chaos controller. Don't ask him how he knew, he just had such a feeling. It was probably because he cultivated the all-word of the 9 words mantra. From time to time, Muronyu would have a subtle feeling in his heart. Moreover, only when his soul, cultivation, and physical body were similar would Murongyu's fighting strength be the strongest. If his physical body and soul reached the Chaos Realm, not only would he be invincible in the Chaos Realm, but he would even have the power to fight against a Bright World Realm ancestor. The Golden Embryo's secret realm was very mysterious. Hichu Luoshu could not directly teleport to the Sky Martial World outside. Muronyu also knew that Ancestor Tianhai and the others were guarding the exit. Therefore, Muronyu did not leave in the following time. Instead, he cultivated in the Golden Embryo's secret realm. However, a year had passed just like that, and his cultivation level was extremely limited. This could not be helped. The ferocious beasts in the Golden Embryo's secret realm were too difficult to kill. Facing Bright World Realm ferocious beasts, Muronyu basically could not kill them. As for ferocious beasts below the Bright World Realm, even if he refined their bodies, he could not raise Murongyu's strength by much. In the process, Muronyu had even been chased by Bright World Realm ferocious beasts many times. Although in the end, there was no danger, it did not benefit Murongyu's cultivation at all. Moreover, there were many natural treasures in the Golden Embryo's secret realm. However, the slightly higher-grade natural treasures were guarded by powerful, ferocious beasts. 3 years later, Muronyu finally raised his physical body to the rebirth state after going through untold hardships. His soul had also reached the peak of the 9-star realm. He was only 1 step away from breaking through to the rebirth state. However, he could not take this step. It's time to leave the Golden Embryo secret realm. Muronyu raised his head and looked at the golden sky of the Golden Embryo secret realm. Then he extended his body and shot toward the exit of the Golden Embryo secret realm. However, before he could get close to the exit, he had already stopped with a gloomy face. This was because he realized that the exit was covered by several extremely powerful divine consciousnesses. 6 extremely powerful divine consciousnesses covered the area within a radius of 1 billion miles around the exit. It was the divine consciousnesses of the half-step to creation state ancestors of the 6 great forces. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.